Chapter 15:12. For the next week, Gu Nianji was completely immersed in drafting the bid document. She worked overtime from dawn to dusk, and only slept 2 to 3 hours a day. By the end of the week, she finally finished the entire bid document. Looking at her watch, it was already 10 a.m. She could finally sleep before 4 a.m. that day. After a whole day, she still drank some milk in the morning. Her stomach growled, so she put on her coat and headphones. Listening to music, she went downstairs to buy a wonton from the all-night shop. She also took the opportunity to get some fresh air. Running between the office and the apartment every day was exhausting. In front of the shop, several couples were waiting in line for supper. They snuggled up to each other and only had eyes for each other when they talked. When they were happy, they kissed and unscrupulously displayed the beauty of youth and the sweetness of love under the night sky. Gu Nianji accidentally saw it, and her heart suddenly ached like a needle. She used to have such a beautiful life. She used to have a man she loved. The feelings that had been suppressed for a long time finally exploded that night. She looked up at the night sky. In the dark blue sky, a lone star shone in the sky. Her headphones were playing the single, "If Love Had Providence," on repeat recently. On this lonely night, it made her tears flow like a fountain. The star in the sky appeared. "Do you know that I'm starting to miss it again? How much love can only look at each other from afar, like the moonlight shining on the sea." He Jichu sat in the car and quietly watched Gu Nianji's thin figure under the night sky. His shimmering almond-shaped eyes deepened. After a while, he opened the car door and walked to Gu Nianji's side. He reached out and gently wrapped his arm around her shoulder. He took off one of her headphones and put it in his ear to listen to music with her. Gu Nianji had stayed up for several nights and happened to be in a state of extreme longing. For a moment she was in a daze. She saw a tall figure in military uniform standing beside her, and Hua Xiaoheng's handsome features immediately appeared in her mind. She watched in a daze as he bent over with a smile and took away one of her headphones. "Hua Xiao, you're here," she murmured. Her bright eyes were unfocused, but she saw someone else through He Jichu. He Jichu tightened his grip and didn't say anything. He pressed her head against his chest. He was wearing a military uniform. He was tall and had a wide leather belt around his thin waist. His face was cold and indifferent. His gaze swept across the crowd, and the couples in the queue before and after them hid far away. Gu Nianji's shoulder hurt from He Jichu's grip. When she came back to her senses, she saw that the person in front of her was not Hua Xiaoheng, but He Jichu. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes as if nothing had happened and whispered, "Young Master He, why are you here?" He Jichu stroked her head and said coldly, "I missed you, so I came." "Gu Nianji," she averted her gaze and purposely changed the topic. She muttered, "You only know how to play for privileges." He Jichu, what a heartless little fellow. Who was he trying to get special privileges for? Recalling how Gu Nianji had mistaken him for someone else, He Jichu was so angry that his liver hurt. But what could he do? Of course he forgave her. He Jichu didn't say anything else and followed her in line. When they arrived at the store, he bought 2 bowls of wontons to go. He carried 2 plastic bags in one hand and held Gu Nianji's hand in the other as he walked back to her apartment with her. Perhaps it was because it was the middle of the night, when people were the most vulnerable, Gu Nianji didn't shake his hand off. Instead, she allowed him to hold her hand as they walked into the elevator. Gu Nianji turned off the song player on her phone and took her other headphone back. She took the opportunity to pull her hand away and asked, "What are you doing here?" He Jichu raised an eyebrow. Gu Nianji immediately said, "Don't say that you missed me. That's a terrible reason. Do you think I'll believe you?" He Jichu looked at her silently for a while and curled his lips. A smile flashed across his sparkling almond-shaped eyes as he said, "Yes, you're indeed very smart. I'm here on business." "That's more like it." Gu Nianji became proud of herself. She raised her right index and middle fingers and pointed at her eyes. "My eyes aren't for show. No matter what kind of monster or snake they are, they can't escape my sharp eyes." He Jichu's expression was cold. "Sister? Gu Nianji, if you don't get beaten up for 3 days, you're going to tear the roof tiles apart, aren't you?" Gu Nianji giggled and cupped her hands. "I'm used to saying that. Don't blame me, young Master He." "Calling me young Master He is too formal." He Jichu leaned against the inner wall of the elevator with 2 plastic bags in one hand and one hand on the armrest. He crossed his long legs in front of him and smiled faintly. "Call me Brother He. Gu Nianji. Young Master He, your appearance is an eyesore. When you called yourself sister just now, I didn't say that you were an eyesore." He Jichu glanced at her. His sparkling almond-shaped eyes contained emotions that Gu Nianji couldn't understand. Gu Nianji shrugged. Alright, she had indeed taken advantage of Hijichu just now. Brother He, you're a magnanimous person. Don't lower yourself to my level. Gu Nianji bowed, making Hijichu pursed his lips and laugh. His expression had always been cold and indifferent, but when he smiled, it was as if the ice had suddenly broken and the spring water had melted. It was extremely beautiful. Gu Nianji quickly looked away and lowered her head to ponder Hijichu's intentions. The elevator dinged as they arrived at their floor. Hijichu walked out first. He stood at the door and waited for Gu Nianji to open the door. Gu Nianji tilted her head to look at him and smiled. Don't you have a key? She knew that although she had come to Sea City to live alone, Hijichu and He Qingjian's men had been secretly protecting her at all times. Of course, it could also be said that they were monitoring her. She didn't believe that these people didn't have a key to the house she rented. Of course Hijichu had a key, but how could he take it out in front of Gu Nianji to open the door? Just like when Gu Nianji was there, Hua Xiaoheng also had a key to the place where she lived, but he had never used it without her consent. Hijichu looked at the door lock and gestured for Gu Nianji to open the door. Gu Nianji nodded and walked over to open the door. She smiled and said, "My house is very small. It can't even compare to the small closet where young master He keeps his shoes." Hijichu didn't say anything and followed her in. He put down the 2 plastic bags and walked around Gu Nianji's room. The 1-bedroom, 1-living room was less than 50 square meters. It was indeed very small, but it was enough for one person to live in. The furnishings and appliances in the room were all newly bought. It was obvious that they weren't cheap. Under the most difficult circumstances, Gu Nianji didn't make her life difficult. This was also Gu Nianji's characteristic. She had always been a very optimistic girl. Hijichu took out a bowl and chopsticks and called Gu Nianji over to eat the wontons. Gu Nianji smiled and said, "You've become the host. Eat it, you're so talkative." Hijichu took a few wontons from his bowl and gave them to Gu Nianji. "The wontons here are really good. They're the best in Sea City. You're quite lucky." Gu Nianji narrowed her eyes and smiled. She wouldn't tell Hijichu that there was also such a delicious wonton shop in Sea City in the other world. It was hidden in the streets and alleys of Nanqing. Although the address was different, the name of the wonton shop was exactly the same. The taste was also very similar. After eating the wontons, Gu Nianji felt sleepy. She had stayed up for too long and couldn't take it anymore. She yawned and asked Hijichu, "Are you going back to your base or to the hotel?" "I'm going to sleep. I haven't slept well for a few days. To be honest, looking at you feels like I'm dreaming. It doesn't feel real." Hijichu knew that she was working hard, so he couldn't help saying, "Nianji, come back with me. Why are you working so hard? If you want to be a lawyer, I'll transfer my mother's shares to you. The major shareholder of the largest law firm in the country is my mother." Of course it was under his name now. Gu Nianji was a little awake. She rubbed her temples and said, "Young Master He, I have my own goals. I won't sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. Don't worry, I'm not angry with Wen Shui. Who does she think she is to be angry with me? I just hope to use my own abilities to earn a place here." How could Hijichu not understand Gu Nianji's thoughts? He just felt too sorry for her. After trying to persuade her, he gave up when he saw that she insisted on not accepting it. He patted her head. "Rest early. I'm going back to the imperial capital overnight." Gu Nianji's eyes widened. "Why are you in such a hurry?" She couldn't help showing a hint of wanting him to stay. After all, in this unfamiliar world, Hijichu was the person she was most familiar with. Hijichu's gloomy mood suddenly improved because of her words. "You don't want me to leave? Then I'll stay." He took a step forward and said tentatively. Gu Nianji quickly retreated and waved her hands. No. I was just saying. If you have something to do, go do it. Don't delay work." She paused for a moment and said sadly, "If it was Major General Hua, he would definitely put work first and I would follow?" Hijichu's expression suddenly changed and his heart ached. Did she love that person that much? She loved him so much that she was willing to endure his neglect of her? Even when they were far apart, she could still take it out and chew it over and over again, turning the bitterness into sweetness. Hijichu clenched his fists. There was no hurry. He had a lifetime to make Gu Nianji realize that not only was his love for her no less than Hua Xiaoheng's, but it was even greater. "Are you stupid?" Hijichu stopped in his tracks and put his hands in the pockets of his military pants. The corners of his mouth twitched. "What's there to think about? Let me ask you, do you need my help with the Lu Corporation's business?" Gu Nianji immediately perked up when she heard Hijichu talk about work. She shook her head and said, "No need, no need. I've already prepared the bid. Don't interfere. This is my own network and I have to manage it myself. If you interfere, I'll resign and leave this place immediately." Hijichu didn't say anything else when he saw how determined she was. Moreover, he knew Gu Nianji's ability. If no one deliberately obstructed her, she would be able to climb very high on her own. "Okay, keep working hard. I'm leaving." Hijichu opened his arms to her. "Give brother he a loving hug, okay?" Gu Nianji looked at him and slowly moved closer. She blinked her big bright eyes and said with a smile, "As a little sister, give brother he a friendly hug, okay?" Hijichu's outstretched arms stiffened, but he couldn't bear to put it down. Gu Nianji walked over with a smile and hugged him gently. She whispered, "Brother he, if only you were really my brother." This was the first update of the day, chapter 1501, If Love Had Providence. If Love Had Providence was a song by the singer Li Jian. It was very nice to listen to. Yes, next is the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. Why are you asking for votes? Because there are two important rankings. Although the Major General's ranking is already very low, Nianji refuses to give up. So, don't give up either. There will be an extra update at 8 p.m. It will be a special extra update for my book friend Wuxia. Such a good book friend, who is full of enthusiasm in the book review section, has to be added. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1513. I'm your brother he, not your biological brother. You have to understand. Hijichu was moved to refuse. Gu Nianji let go of her hand in embarrassment and stole a glance at Hijichu. She saw that he was looking down and expressionless, so she had no choice but to find a way out. "Haha, I was just saying. The He family has such a high threshold I can't get in either. Young Master He, please don't take offense. I'm not that lucky to be young Master He's biological sister." Hijichu's brows gradually furrowed. He grabbed Gu Nianji's hand and pressed it against his chest. He whispered, "Don't play dumb. Don't you know what I mean?" Gu Nianji blinked her large eyes vigorously, her long eyelashes fluttering like 2 rows of tiny fans. Her curvy lips curled up cutely, revealing faint dimples at the corners of her lips. "Young Master He, have you forgotten? Didn't you say you wanted me to treat you as a brother? You're not keeping your word." She was referring to the time in the other world. Hijichu was momentarily speechless. That was then, this was now. At that time he had made up his mind not to come back. Of course, he could only settle for the next best thing, which was to be Gu Nianji's only family member and watch her and Hua Xiaoheng be together. But now Hua Xiaoheng couldn't come over and Gu Nianji couldn't go over either. So why couldn't he be with her? Hijichu gazed at Gu Nianji's faint smile and caressed her face. "I know it's too early to say this, but no matter how long it takes, I'll wait for you." With that, he immediately turned to leave. His footsteps seemed a little panicked. Gu Nianji stared blankly at Hijichu's back for a long time before closing the door. Leaning against the door, she looked at her room. Although it was decorated almost exactly the same as her small apartment, she knew that it was different. No matter how similar it was still different. Hijichu rushed back to the imperial capital overnight. It was already 2 in the morning by the time he got home. He entered the house and casually asked, "Is my dad asleep?" The orderly quickly said, "Sir, General, he is still in the study." "You're still up so late?" Hijichu frowned. "Didn't I tell you? He wanted to urge the bureau chief to rest early. He's not in good health." "Sir, we urged you to come back, but every time you wanted to come back, he would wait for you." Hijichu closed his eyes and asked, "Other people? Are they all back?" The orderly looked at Hijichu carefully and pondered for a moment before asking, "Are you referring to Mrs. Qin? She's not back yet." Hijichu's expression instantly turned cold. "Who told you to talk about Mrs. Qin?" There was only one Madame Qin in this family, and that was his mother, Qin Suwen. Qin Yaoguang had married into the family when he wasn't at home. Hijichu didn't believe that his father, He Qingjian, hadn't instructed him to address her. The orderly scratched his head and whispered, "It was Miss Wen's order. We used to call her Auntie Qin, but when Miss Wen was around, Auntie Qin was a form of address between relatives. We had to call Auntie Qin Mrs. Qin." Hijichu snorted. "When Shuyi is no longer a military personnel, nor is she my personal secretary. Pass down the order. Her words are invalid." The orderly quickly saluted and said loudly, "Yes, sir." After giving instructions to the family, He Jichu went straight to He Qingjian's study on the second floor and gently rang the doorbell. He Qingjian saw from the video that it was He Jichu who had returned and quickly pressed the button to open the door. The door to the study opened silently. He Jichu walked in and closed the door. He Jichu walked around the multi-treasure pavilion that was used as a partition and walked into the inner room. He saw He Qingjian sitting behind the desk and looking up at him with his presbyopic glasses. He took off his glasses and smiled as he pointed at the chair in front of him. "Sadachu, I'm very happy that you came back so late to see me." "He Jichu, I guess you won't be happy later." He placed the evidence he had brought back from Sea City on He Qingjian's desk. It was just a small flash drive. "Dad, I went to Sea City and learned something interesting. I wonder if you're interested in taking a look?" He tapped the desk with his hand and asked calmly, "What is it? If you think it's interesting, then it must be very interesting." He Qingjian chuckled as he plugged the flash drive into his laptop and pressed play. He Jichu leaned back in his chair and placed his hands on the armrests. He said coldly, "This is what my people found out. Look at what your precious wife has done since Nianji went to Sea City." He Qingjian looked at the evidence displayed on the computer. She had instructed Wen Shuyi to call the 4 big law firms in Sea City and hinted at them not to hire Gu Nianji. She had gone to Sea City with old Master Qin to apologize, but it was actually a humiliation. After being humiliated by Gu Nianji's rebuttal, she was still unwilling to give up and tried to create a bigger obstacle, but was stopped by old Master Qin. He Qingjian's expression darkened. "So, she still interfered in Nianji's matter?" "Yes, that day, you personally promised Nianji that you wouldn't interfere in her affairs outside. You also guaranteed for Mrs. Qin and Wen Shuyi that the two of them wouldn't interfere in her affairs." He Jichu's voice became colder as he said mockingly, "But now you see, the two of them are pretending to be obedient. They don't even take your words to heart." He Qingjian stared intently at the video of Gu Nianji arguing with Qin Yaoguang in the conference room alone. He couldn't look away at all. When he heard Gu Nianji say that Qin Yaoguang was an earthworm that had turned into a spirit, he couldn't help laughing. He pointed at Gu Nianji's image on the computer screen and said with a smile, "This child is so mischievous. How could she even think of that?" He Jichu didn't laugh at all. He looked at He Qingjian coldly. "You think it's funny? You think it's funny to see so many grown men threatening a little girl? What's the hurry?" He Qingjian rolled his eyes at He Jichu unhappily. "Look, she didn't lose out. Let me tell you, a person can only become a superior person if they can remain calm in the face of danger, remain calm in the face of poverty, and remain calm in the face of success. Nianji is really a piece of unpolished jade." He looked at her thoughtfully. "She is indeed worthy of the position of young madam of the He family. Even if she isn't that capable, she can still take the responsibility. Because other than her, I won't marry anyone else," He Jichu said casually, as if it would rain on a cloudy day and the sun would shine on a sunny day. He Qingjian glared at him. "Do you think I'm blind and can't see it? Otherwise, why would I go through so much effort to get her back?" He Jichu was speechless. He raised his left index finger and rubbed it against his nose. He coughed lightly. "She's a qualified young madam. What about madam? Do you think she's qualified?" It was obvious that the she He Jichu was referring to wasn't Gu Nianji, but Qin Yaoguang. He Qingjian's eyes drooped in disbelief. "I thought she was just a straightforward person who didn't have so many twists and turns in her mind as a researcher. I really didn't expect her to be able to bully Nianji like this. It's a little too much. Yes, she can choose not to treat Nianji as her own daughter, but she has no reason to treat Nianji as her enemy." He Jichu slammed the desk and said angrily, "How could she not know what it means for a young person who has just started her career to prevent her from finding a good job? She keeps saying that she doesn't treat her as her own daughter, but whenever something happens she has to mention it. She's afraid that others won't know that Nianji is her daughter." He Jichu lowered his voice. "Haven't you ever advised her not to go crazy?" He Qingjian smiled bitterly. "Before Nianji came back she didn't go crazy. He Jichu, Gu Xiangwen had sent Gu Nianji to their house when she was 6 years old. In the past 6 years, the number of times Qin Yaoguang had visited her could be counted on one hand. At that time she had treated Gu Nianji with a business-like attitude. Although she wasn't enthusiastic, she wasn't as overboard as she was now. She hadn't expected that 7 years later, when Gu Nianji, who had grown up, returned, she couldn't even maintain a business-like attitude. He Jichu stood up. "I still plan to move out. Dad, I don't want to interfere with your life. Please don't interfere with me in the future. Really, it's good for me, for you, and for this family if I move out." "Achu." He Chengjian quickly stood up and looked at him anxiously. I haven't said my decision yet. Why are you in such a hurry? I have no intention of forcing you to make any decision for me. He Jichu looked at his father calmly. Really, I just can't control myself. Especially after seeing the video of her trying to beat Nianji up, I can't bear to live under the same roof as Mrs. Qin as if nothing had happened. Only now do I understand why Nianji really wants to leave this family. Ijichu was a little disappointed. In the end, he still couldn't give her a true sense of security. She couldn't relax like she did when she lived by Hua Xiaoheng's side. But it didn't matter. This also explained why Nianji couldn't fall in love with him yet. If he knew what he was lacking, he would be able to correct it and do better. When that day came, it would be natural for them to be together. The next day, He Qingjian sat in his bulletproof car and went to the He family's cemetery. The best grave in the cemetery was for Qin Suwen, and the one next to it was for himself. He placed a bouquet of flowers in front of Qin Suwen's tombstone. He Qingjian took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the photo on Qin Suwen's tombstone. The woman in the photo had a plain appearance. She had thin eyebrows, light-colored lips, and a slightly high nose. However, it was a little abrupt on her relatively flat oval face. Her eyes were neither big nor small, and her eyelids were always drooping. She looked at people as if she was mocking them. No one would have thought that this kind of appearance would make He Qingjian, the only son of the He family who was elegant, handsome, and arrogant, fall in love with her. He loved her so much that he couldn't extricate himself. He had even broken off the engagement with his fiancée, Qin Yaoguang, who was from the famous Qin family and was even more beautiful, and married Qin Suwen, an orphan girl from the Qin orphanage. However, He Qingjian knew that his wife was intelligent and intelligent. He didn't even think that she wasn't good-looking at all. In his eyes, her thin eyebrows were like distant mountains, her light-colored lips were like clear water hibiscus, her tall nose was imposing, and her mocking expression had personality. Not to mention that when she shone in court, she was simply charming. He looked at his wife's photo and said in a low voice, Suwen, I know you don't like to owe people favors. Yaoguang saved Jichu's life, but I can't let Jichu be unhappy because of outsiders. I think you'll understand. After returning from the cemetery, he went to the Qin family's private hospital to see Qin Yaoguang. Qin Yaoguang had just returned from Sea City and planned to stay in the hospital for a few days before going home. When she heard that He Qingjian had come to see her, she was so happy that she didn't even comb her hair. She ran to the door barefoot and reached out her hand happily. Qingjian, you're here to see me. He Qingjian nodded and didn't hold her hand. He said lightly, how's your injury? Her hand was already much better. There was only a light layer of gauze wrapped around her palm. Qin Yaoguang's heart was even sweeter. She smiled and walked in with him. I'm much better. When Shui walked out of Qin Yaoguang's ward and said with a smile, General, he is here. He Qingjian glanced at Qin Yaoguang. Qin Yaoguang quickly said, Shui is my assistant now. He Qingjian grunted and didn't go in. He said, that's good. Ask her to go to the He family's house to pack up your things and take them all away. Why do you want to take them away? Qin Yaoguang was a little dumbfounded. She had just fallen from the great ecstasy of He Qingjian taking the initiative to see her. Her mind was in a daze and she couldn't think. There are some problems between us that we can't get along with. We'll live separately for the time being. He Qingjian said this and turned to leave. This was today's second update for the book Friend Wuxia, Chapter 1502, That Time. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Monthly votes and recommendation votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1514. Qin Yaoguang froze. She stared at He Qingjian for a long time before muttering, why? What problems do we need to solve? Tell me, I'll definitely change. He Qingjian wasn't a young man who had just fallen in love. Now that he saw that Qin Yaoguang was almost 50 years old and was still talking like an 18 or 19-year-old girl, he found it even more ridiculous. He said calmly, I'm already so old. If I could change, I would have changed long ago. This sentence was like a giant meteorite falling from the sky, smashing Qin Yaoguang until she was dizzy and her face flushed red. Seeing that the situation was not good, Wen Shui hurriedly said, you guys go in and talk. I'll ask the doctor if I can be discharged. She didn't want to witness Qin Yaoguang's embarrassing side here. Qin Yaoguang had already ordered her around as a servant. If she didn't know what to do, she probably wouldn't even be able to be a servant anymore. After Wen Shui left, Qin Yaoguang heaved a sigh of relief. She did not want to expose her unbearable side to others. In her life, she had only lowered her head in front of He Qingjian. He Qingjian thought for a moment before following her into Qin Yaoguang's ward and sitting down in front of her. Brother He, really you can't be like this. Qin Yaoguang's eyes gradually turned red, and she spoke very slowly. How did I make you angry? I really don't understand. Others might not know how I've treated you all these years, but don't tell me you don't know. He Qingjian was touched when he thought about how Qin Yaoguang had waited for him for decades. But that was all. He was not moved to the extent of having feelings for her. You were indeed very good to me at first. He Qingjian sighed. But you treated your own daughter, big brother He. Could it be because of Nianji? Qin Yaoguang's heart sank and she became even more nervous. Is it because of Nianji? Yes. He Qingjian was very honest with her. What you promised me was all against my will. You know, I usually don't think badly of others, but once I find out that they're not what they seem to be, I'll definitely think of the worst. That is to say, he would not prejudge anyone as a bad person until he found out what was really bad about the person. Qin Yaoguang was so angry and anxious that she couldn't even speak clearly. Brother He. I had no choice. When I see her, I can't control myself. He Qingjian frowned slightly. I don't understand. As soon as I saw her, I felt like I'd betrayed you. Qin Yaoguang's eyes were brimming with tears. Her exquisite lips kept opening and closing, making one feel pity for her. He Qingjian was stunned. He looked up and said, No way? When you saw Nianji, why did you feel like you betrayed me? Because I'm yours. I'm yours alone, but I gave birth to a child with someone else. Qin Yaoguang held her chest. Brother He, is it because of this that you don't want to be with me? What nonsense are you talking about? He Qingjian finally understood and was speechless. If it weren't for Nianji, you would never have had the chance to marry into the He family. I hope you understand that. Qin Yaoguang's eyes dimmed in an instant. She was silent for a long time before saying, So all the things I've done for you all these years aren't as useful as Gu Nianji? He Qingjian stood up and said coldly, You saved Achu. Suwen and I are both grateful to you. This will never change, but it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. You know me. I'm clear about public and private matters and I won't mix them up. Qin Yaoguang's face was pale and she smiled sadly. How did I do whatever I wanted? Didn't I just block a few of Gu Nianji's jobs? Is it worth making such a big deal out of it? You still think you're right? He Qingjian realized that Qin Yaoguang was really confused. You think you only blocked a few of Nianji's jobs, but to me you made me break my promise. You call this making a big deal out of nothing? Who is He Qingjian? The highest leader of the Wuxia Empire's military, a person whose words carried weight. But Gu Nianji is my daughter. Qin Yaoguang was still indignant. I'm doing it for her own good. What's the point of being in that place? Only when she can't survive in Sea City will she think of coming back to beg us. Only then will she obediently marry Jichu. Brother He, do you really not understand or are you pretending not to understand? The more He Qingjian listened, the more annoyed he became. What do you mean? In your eyes is my son that bad? Do you have to use such a shameful method to force Nianji to submit? How can she really fall in love with him if you do this? Qin Yaoguang, are you really an earthworm that has turned into a spirit? Not only have your intestines been penetrated to the end, but even your brain has been penetrated. What did you say? Qin Yaoguang's expression changed drastically. She looked at He Qingjian in disbelief. How did you know? You sent someone to spy on me? You have a video? Qin Yaoguang immediately understood what the problem was when she heard, an earthworm that has turned into a spirit. This was the greatest humiliation in her life, second only to He Qingjian breaking off his engagement. He Qingjian smiled. Spy on you? You're overthinking it. I only did this to protect Nianji. If I didn't do this, I really wouldn't have known that you treated Nianji so badly. He approached her. Qin Yaoguang, what are you thinking? Gu Nianji is your biological daughter. What do you want by making things difficult for her? Can't you just turn a blind eye to her like you did before? Qin Yaoguang collapsed on the sofa and took 2 deep breaths. She turned her head and said, All right, stop talking. If we're separated, then so be it. We also need to calm down. He Qingjian nodded. Okay, hurry up and send someone to take your things away. I won't see you for now. He turned to leave, but Qin Yaoguang said faintly from behind him. You don't want me anymore? He Qingjian didn't turn around. With his back facing Qin Yaoguang, he frowned imperceptibly and said, Back then our engagement was the idea of our parents. I told you clearly from the beginning that I didn't have feelings for you. But didn't you know that I fell in love with you at first sight? Qin Yaoguang's voice was exceptionally sad and fragile. She had thought that even if she didn't feel anything at first, she would definitely feel something in the future. She wasn't wrong to think that way. There weren't many couples who fell in love at first sight. Most people fell in love with each other over time. But after I met Suwen, I finally understood what it felt like to truly love someone. He Qingjin looked up at the voice-activated light at the door of the ward. I still remember the first time I saw her. That day was the first day of school at B University. I had something to do and passed by B University. I saw everyone picking up the new students. I saw a back figure in the crowd that looked almost exactly like you. I thought it was you, so I went over and patted her shoulder to stop her. When Qin Suwen turned around, He Qingjin knew that he had recognized the wrong person because the two of them looked completely different. She looked at He Qingjin in surprise and asked in amusement, "What can I do for you?" Her voice was very pleasant to the ears. It was crisp and tender with a hint of magnetism. Although she wasn't very good-looking, she was calm and polite. He Qingjin saw that he had recognized the wrong person and quickly apologized to her. She didn't mind. She smiled heartily and waved at him. Then she dragged a large, shabby suitcase into the crowd. That was the first time they had met. He Qingjin didn't take it to heart at first. He just thought it was funny that someone's back view was so similar. When he came back and told Qin Yaoguang about it, the two of them laughed for a long time. The next time he saw Qin Suwen was at the debate competition at B University. He had originally gone to support Qin Yaoguang, but he was captivated by Qin Suwen's eloquence. That night, all the lights were focused on her, making her unattractive face look even more radiant. He Qingjin began to pay attention to her. He even appeared by her side intentionally or unintentionally and became friends with her. Unknowingly, his attention to her had changed. When he realized that he had truly fallen in love with this unprepossessing but extremely intelligent girl, he immediately explained the situation to his father and then broke off the engagement with the Qin family. At first, Qin Yaoguang didn't know that he had fallen in love with Qin Suwen. She thought that he had fallen in love with the daughter of another aristocratic family, so she had been very remorseful. Because at that time, with the Qin family's background, her engagement with He Qingjin was a proper way to climb the social ladder. Hearing He Qingjin reminisce about the past, Qin Yaoguang's expression became even more dismal. She lowered her head and wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She sobbed and said, "So after all these years of hard work and sacrifice, I still couldn't move you. I was the one who met you first. Actually, I told you a long time ago that you don't have to waste your time on me. At that time there were so many people pursuing you. Even that lunatic genius had a soft spot for you. Why can't you let it go?" At that time, Qin Yaoguang was indeed a popular figure on campus. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also very smart. She was a school belle in medical school and she was engaged to He Qingjin. In the eyes of her classmates, she was a winner in life. However, He Qingjin suddenly broke off the engagement with her and turned to pursue Qin Suwen, which made Qin Yaoguang disheartened. She couldn't stay in school anymore, so she had no choice but to transfer abroad to complete her medical degree. It was also because of He Qingjin's guilt towards Qin Yaoguang that the He family became the Qin family's help, allowing them to obtain a lot of benefits. If it weren't for the He family, the Qin family wouldn't have been able to develop to its current scale in more than 20 years. It was indeed my fault for breaking off the engagement back then, but in the past 20 to 30 years, your Qin family has already received enough benefits from our He family. He Qingjin was a little impatient. Even if you had married me back then, your Qin family would have only received so many benefits. So, to be honest, I don't owe you anything. Qin Yaoguang choked for a moment. She lowered her head and said, "You only know how to talk about benefits, but what about my feelings? After all these years, you really don't owe me any feelings?" "I can't help that." He Qingjin opened the door to the ward. "I tried to accept you. Otherwise, why would I marry you? I even agreed to let you use my frozen sperm to do a test tube baby. If that test tube had succeeded, would you not have been so heartless?" Qin Yaoguang wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. She had used He Qingjin's frozen sperm to fuse with her own egg cells to make 4 or 5 fertilized eggs. Only one of them had successfully implanted in her body. However, 2 months after the successful pregnancy, she had a natural miscarriage. She had once been so successful, but it was in this matter that she was extremely frustrated. Most people would choose to get up from where they had fallen. But she, on the other hand, fell into the same pit over and over again. He Qingjin said calmly, "But it didn't work. This means that we're really not suitable for each other. I gave you a chance but you didn't cherish it. He left Qin Yaoguang's ward. Qin Yaoguang looked at his back, her face blank. The next day was Monday. Gu Nianji brought the copy of the bid she had made and went to work in high spirits. She arrived at the second floor of the Lu Corporation building early. She saw that Jin Dezhuang and the receptionist, Xiao Zhang, were even earlier than her. She smiled and said, "You guys are also very nervous?" "Of course. This bid document concerns whether or not I, Xiao Zhang, will be able to make a comeback from now on. I'll be a carp that leaps through the dragon gate and successfully ascend to the front desk of a big law firm." Xiao Zhang held Gu Nianji's hand, his eyes shining with excitement. He touched the folder in her hand. "I just turned the koi today. I'll share some good luck with your bid document." This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1503, Good Luck for Koi. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. There would be a Valentine's Day update at 8 p.m. moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1515. Gu Nianji looked at Xiao Zhang's hand at the front desk and was speechless. Jin Dezhuang walked over with his goji berries in his hands and said slowly, "I'll go with you. You've already sent the bid, right?" "Yes, they've already received it." Gu Nianji picked up the coffee that Xiao Zhang had made for her and took a sip. "This is a copy. After they receive it, they'll screen it based on the content of the bid. If it's shortlisted, they'll receive a call today or tomorrow." That day the three of them were not in the mood to work. They had been waiting anxiously for the call. Finally, before they got off work in the afternoon, Xiao Zhang at the front desk received a call from the Lu Corporation as he wished. "Lawyer Gu, Lawyer Jin, we've been shortlisted. We'll go to the site tomorrow." Xiao Zhang at the front desk jumped and shouted. He was extremely happy. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief and quickly took a big gulp of water. She smiled and said, "Look at me, I'm so nervous that I didn't even dare to drink water. I was afraid that if I drank too much water, it would delay the call." "Then you can't drink water tomorrow either. Otherwise it wouldn't be good if you missed the on-site bidding." Xiao Zhang took the water cup from Gu Nianji's hand seriously. "Leave it with me. I'll return it to you when you pass." Gu Nianji, she knew that as long as no one got in the way, it wouldn't be a problem to get a small contract. At 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, Gu Nianji and Jin Dezhuang were dressed in their best suits. They carried their laptops to the Lu Corporation's conference room on the 30th floor and waited for the interview. They were the smallest law firm and were ranked last among all the law firms that were bidding on the spot. They waited from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon before Gu Nianji and Jin Dezhuang were called in. The person in charge of the on-site bidding was already so tired that he was swaying left and right. He didn't want to listen to them at all. The bald male supervisor sitting in the middle frowned as he looked at the Jin law firm's bid document. He muttered, "Why did something strange sneak in? How did the legal department screen? How dare such a small law firm come to our company to bid for business? Are they looking down on our Lu Corporation?" Gu Nianji coughed softly and said, "Sir, your microphone is not turned off." Therefore, everyone heard his muttering. There was an awkward laughter in the conference room. The bald male supervisor did it on purpose. He didn't expect the two of them to be so tactless. He shook their bidding documents impatiently. "Your law firm is so small. Why would you want to bid for our business? Was there a mistake somewhere? Why don't you go back first and I'll check with the department in charge of screening the bidding documents." Holy shit. A mistake. Everyone has been waiting for an entire day, and you're telling me there's a mistake? Gu Nianji was about to lose her temper when the door of the conference room was suddenly pushed open. Lu Yuan walked in slowly and said gently, "I happen to be free, so I came to listen to the bidding." "Hello, President Lu. Director Lu. Chairman Lu, please sit here. Boss Lu, do you want tea or coffee?" The managers of the Lu Corporation who were in charge of the bidding and defense were extremely excited. They surrounded their big boss and flattered him. Gu Nianji swallowed her anger when she saw Lu Yuan come in. With Lu Yuan around, these people could not slack off even if they wanted to. As expected, the bald male supervisor asked excitedly, "Jin Law Firm, which one of you is the author of this bidding document?" Gu Nianji stood up. "It's me. Is there anything you would like to ask?" The bald male supervisor was about to speak when Lu Yuan reached out and took Gu Nianji's bidding document from him. He said, "Let me take a look." The big boss was going to ask questions personally, so the managers in the room could only hold their breaths. Lu Yuan looked at it for a while and asked, "Lawyer Gu, right?" Your law firm is so small that it doesn't seem to match the professional functions that our company needs in the legal field. The bald male supervisor next to him quickly nodded when he heard this. Yes, that's what I said just now. Whether it's intellectual property rights, cross-border mergers and acquisitions, or infringement lawsuits, they don't have any experience in this area. The 4 major law firms that we just competed with all have their own strengths. Actually, Gu Nianji was already prepared. She immediately interrupted them and asked calmly, "May I ask if in your company's eyes, only intellectual property rights, cross-border mergers and acquisitions, and infringement lawsuits are considered legal business? Isn't that so?" The bald male supervisor looked at Gu Nianji with a smile. "Don't tell me you want us to use your expertise in divorce lawsuits? Little girl, are you married? If you're not married, you won't be able to find a partner if you keep helping people fight divorce lawsuits." Gu Nianji was furious. How could he have the face to say such a strong personal attack? Although Gu Nianji was angry, she still maintained her composure. She took out her business card and placed it in front of the bald male supervisor. She said calmly, Sure. I think you'll need to look for us soon. I'll give you a 20% discount." The bald male supervisor was stunned for a moment before he understood what Gu Nianji meant. He couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Why are you cursing me? I only said one thing to you, and you're cursing me for divorce just like that. He threw Gu Nianji's business card on the ground. Gu Nianji bent down to pick it up and said nonchalantly, "Okay, then when your wife comes to me for divorce, I'll give her a 20% discount." You. The bald male supervisor was completely furious. He stood up and waved his arm vigorously. "Get out." He directly told Gu Nianji to get lost. Gu Nianji knew that Lu Yuan wasn't the kind of person who would look down on others. She turned her gaze over. "President Lu, are you chasing me away too?" Lu Yuan smiled and apologized to her. "Lawyer Gu, I'm really sorry for making you feel wronged. It's our fault." He looked at the bald male supervisor, who had lost his composure, and his eyes darkened. You're the one who should get lost." The president and chairman had spoken, and the bald male supervisor was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He walked out of the conference room in a daze. He couldn't understand why he had been angered by that little girl's words. He must be too tired, however, he had to teach this small law firm a lesson. In the large conference room, Gu Nianji spoke with confidence. "President Lu, I know that our law firm is indeed very small, but small has its advantages. Our business is close to the people's livelihood and has a close relationship with ordinary people. We're good at dealing with ordinary people. We know their needs and demands. For a large company like yours, you don't need a divorce lawyer to help you with a lawsuit, but you need labor arbitration. I've studied the legal composition of your company and found that you're blank in labor arbitration. In terms of labor law, our lawyer Jean is a true expert. He has personally helped many fired employees with reasonable labor arbitration. It can be said that he's not inferior to any large law firm. On the contrary, because of the fees charged by a large law firm, this kind of small labor arbitration won't be in their eyes. Ordinary employees can't afford to hire a large law firm, but we can provide the same quality service as a large law firm, but our fees are only a fraction of theirs. So I believe that if you sign a contract with our law firm, we can help you solve many labor problems. Your HR department can also consult our law firm as much as possible when it comes to hiring personnel." After Gu Nianji finished speaking, she placed another more detailed bid in front of Lu Yuan. "President Lu, this is the detailed bid I made. There's a comparison of data in it. Please refer to it." The bid wasn't long, only 3 pages, but the data was detailed and the argument was powerful. One didn't need to be a legal professional to be able to tell the weight of this bid. A bid written with this kind of thinking would have a very high winning rate even if it were to bid for the business of a large international company. Lu Yuan was already very satisfied, but he still said aloofly, "Lawyer Gu, I remember you just said that you were the one who drafted this bid." "Yes, I wrote it all. Every punctuation mark is original." Gu Nianji spread her hands playfully. "All rights reserved. Reproductions will be investigated." Lu Yuan smiled and looked up. The lines at the corners of his eyes were even more charming. "But this bid really doesn't look like it was written by someone who just graduated. Forgive me for asking, but has Lawyer Gu ever had similar work experience before? Whether one had work experience or not, one's performance during an interview was completely different. It was just like how virgins and non-virgins behaved completely differently on their wedding night. Any experienced man would be able to tell at a glance. Gunyanji was stunned for a moment and chose not to say it. I'll tell you this question when I have the chance in the future, okay? Okay, I'll wait and see. Lu Yuan stood up and said to the other supervisors in the conference room, I think they're not bad. We're really lacking in this area. Their addition can fill in the gap in this area. He actually accepted Gunyanji's words completely. The supervisors understood as soon as they heard this and quickly said, Congratulations. You're the first contract law firm we've accepted. Come, Lawyer Jean, Lawyer Gu, sign the contract here. The big boss had already said it was fine. They weren't idiots like before. What good would it do to go against the big boss? Gunyanji and Jean Dezhuang practically floated back to the second floor. The receptionist, Xiao Zhang, rushed over nervously. Lawyer Gu, Lawyer Jean, how was it? Did you pass? No? As if. Gunyanji shouted and jumped up with Xiao Zhang in her arms. We're rich. We can hire now. Xiao Zhang, you're the beauty of the front desk. Xiao Zhang was also extremely happy. I don't have to change jobs. I want a promotion and a raise. Jean Dezhuang was so angry that his nose was crooked. Xiao Zhang. You despise the poor and love the rich. In the end, Gunyanji and Xiao Zhang laughed even harder. Jean Dezhuang was angry for a while, then he also laughed and said, People go up and water flows down. I don't blame Xiao Zhang for thinking that way. I was the one who was stuck in my own ways. I admit my mistake. From now on, we will work together to make the law firm bigger and stronger. Their law firm had good news, and so did the Lu Corporation. A week later, the Lu Corporation announced the good news of their in-depth cooperation with the Qin Corporation in terms of network security. They were also negotiating a new contract with the government to provide technical support for the country in terms of network security. The Lu Corporation stock price rose in response and doubled in a week. Of course, the Lu Corporation had to celebrate such a joyous occasion. Therefore, the CEO's office announced that the company would hold a grand celebration. This meeting would not be held in C City, but in H City, known as the Pearl of the East. H City was a metropolis in the south of Wuxia Empire. It had one of the 3 best deep-water ports in the world, Victoria Port. It was also a tourist city. All 3 of them in the law firm had received invitations. Lawyer Gu, are you going or not? It's a free tour. The receptionist, Xiao Zhang, was very excited. Gunyanji didn't want to go at first. Her birthday was coming up and she was feeling down. She didn't have the energy to do anything. She said listlessly, We'll talk about it then. Xiao Zhang was browsing Weibo on his iPad. From time to time he exclaimed, The Lu Corporation is really generous. They invited so many celebrities. There are still a lot of socialites. Ah, look, this socialite is so elegant and beautiful. Let me see who she is. Xiao Zhang put on a show by himself. She patted Gunyanji on the shoulder. Lawyer Gu, look, Xie Qingying, Prime Minister Xie's niece. I heard that she represented Prime Minister Xie at the celebration banquet of the Lu Corporation. Gunyanji's heart skipped a beat. Oh, Xie Qingying, she's going too. Xiao Zhang showed Gunyanji his Weibo. Gunyanji looked at Xie Qingying's graceful figure in an evening gown on Weibo's trending page, and her heart burned. For Xie Qingying she had to go. He finally had the chance to approach the Xie family quietly. This is today's second Valentine's Day update, Chapter 1504, Good News. P.S. Thank you to Little One Kiss for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Yes, next is the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly and recommendation tickets over. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1516. It looks interesting. Gunyanji said with interest. She rested her cheek on one hand and tilted her head in front of Xiao Zhang to watch the socialite gossip with her. When she saw that Wen Shuyi was also among the socialites, in a white LV suit, Gunyanji raised her eyebrows and pointed at her photo. This person is also a socialite? She had thought that socialites had to be girls from prominent families. Of course. Xiao Zhang poked at the photo on the iPad with her finger. She's amazing. I heard that she's Dean Qin's goddaughter. She graduated from Harvard Law School and is the youngest director of the military. She's also Major General He's personal secretary. Although Wen Shuyi was no longer He Zhichu's personal secretary, the general public still didn't know about this. Gunyanji scoffed. Dean Qin's goddaughter? Really? That's what they all say because Dean Qin has brought her to some upper-class banquets. Maybe she's his assistant. Xiao Zhang seemed to remember something and took out her phone. Let me show you my collection. I can't even bear to use it as wallpaper. She took out a photo from her phone album and showed it to Gu Nianji as if she was showing off a treasure. See, this is the only photo of Major General He that has appeared on the internet. You don't know how many ignorant girls you've captured. It was a photo of He Jichu at work when he was promoted. The young Major General was in high spirits. He faced the camera silently and indifferently. His almond-shaped eyes were as deep as the sea and as dark as the night. He didn't say a word, but he could make people plunge into his deep eyes and drown in them. Gu Nianji looked up at Xiao Zhang. Are you also one of the ignorant girls? I used to be. Xiao Zhang corrected her. When I was young and ignorant, I was his brainless fan. But when I grew up, I knew that I couldn't be Mrs. He, so I hid my love deep and didn't let anyone know. Gu Nianji looked at her again. Don't let anyone know? She pointed at herself. I'm not anyone? Xiao Zhang giggled. Of course you're not anyone. You're my boss and my breadwinner. How can you be anyone? Lawyer Gu, to be honest, Major General He has been keeping a low profile all these years. He hasn't shown his face in 3 or 4 years. We brainless fans have already climbed the wall. Gu Nianji. Come, Lawyer Gu, do you want to join the Major General He's brainless fan club with me? Xiao Zhang pretended to be serious and reached out his hand to her. I'm the founder. I'll be your president. Gu Nianji giggled and said, that's not necessary. You can be his fan yourself. Don't you think he's very, very handsome? Little Zhang was surprised. Let's not talk about this uniform anymore. I'm a fan of uniforms. I know that. I've already given up on treatment. Just his looks and his abilities are enough to make you fall into a trap, right? How can you be so cruel as to reject him? Gu Nianji replied leisurely, he's quite handsome, but I'm already someone else's hardcore fan. I'm completely loyal to him. Desuke, you only know how to brag. Is there anyone more handsome than General He? Xiao Zhang didn't believe him at all. He rolled his eyes and said, all right, you lawyers are so good at talking. It would be strange if I could hear the truth from your mouths. You're worth teaching. Gu Nianji patted her head and walked back to her office with a smile. Because their law firm had obtained the Lu Corporation's contract, they were expanding their business. The first thing they did was rent an office on the 11th floor. They were no longer the small law firm with only 2 rooms on the 2nd floor. They now occupied a quarter of the 11th floor and had about 10 rooms. Of course, Gu Nianji had her own office. She had already been promoted to partner. After entering her office, the smile on Gu Nianji's face fell. She sat back at her desk and stared at the 3 computer screens in front of her in a daze. Xie Qingying. She didn't expect Xie Qingying to be here too. She didn't stop for long before her phone rang. Gu Nianji looked at it. Was He Jichu calling? She took the phone and answered the call. She joked, young Master He, we still have your brainless fan here. He Jichu. He wasn't used to it. Gu Nianji chuckled. How have you been? What's the matter? He Jichu came back to his senses and said, your birthday is coming up. How do you want to celebrate it? Gu Nianji looked at her schedule and said lazily, I won't be able to celebrate it this year. I'm going to H City. On my birthday, I'm going to attend the Lu Corporation's celebration party there. The Lu Corporation's celebration party? Ijichu frowned. Can't you not go? No. Gu Nianji objected cleanly. I have to go. There are so many celebrities and socialites. I want to go and watch the show. Hijichu knew that Gu Nianji wasn't someone who liked to watch such shows, but since she said she wanted to go, she had to go. How could Hijichu not let her go? He sighed. Then I'll come to C City early to celebrate your birthday? There's no need to trouble yourself. Gu Nianji said with a smile. Actually, birthdays are celebrated every year. It's fine to celebrate once in a while. She chatted with Hijichu for a while and thought of Xie Qingying and Wen Shui, who she had just gossiped with Xiao Zhang. She smiled and teased, I didn't expect young Master He's personal secretary to be a socialite. Socialite one really likes to be in the limelight at social events. I saw that her socialite ranking is even higher than Prime Minister Xie's niece, Xie Qingying. Hijichu didn't care about Wen Shui at all. He immediately said, she's no longer my personal secretary. I know, but others don't. Gu Nianji shrugged. Alright, I was just saying it casually. She's not among the socialites invited by the Lu Corporation this time. Are they well informed and already know? How would I know? Hijichu said as he turned on his computer and searched for news about the Lu Corporation's celebration party. He saw Xie Qingying's name in the string of sparkling names and couldn't help but pause for a moment. After hanging up the phone, Hijichu sat in his office for a while. He felt a little uneasy and decided to ask He Qingjian. Dad, when I sent the news back, you investigated the whole family, right? He Jichu sat in He Qingjian's study and asked in a low voice. I did. I searched the whole country for 3 years, but there was no He Xuanong or He Guanqian. Of course there was no He Xiaoheng. What's wrong? He Qingjian raised an eyebrow and looked at him. Are you worried that Gun Yanji will fall in love with someone else because He Xiaoheng is also here? He Jichu shook his head. I don't think Yanji will fall in love with someone else even if He Xiaoheng is here. After all, He Xiaoheng here isn't the He Xiaoheng over there, even if he looks exactly the same. If she really wanted to fall in love with someone else, she would only fall in love with him, not a substitute. After a pause he added, Yanji isn't a person who looks at appearances. Actually, he knew that Gun Yanji was a person who looked at appearances, but he absolutely couldn't admit it in front of He Qingjian. He Qingjian laughed. Then what are you worried about? Actually, it's pretty good to have He Xiaoheng here. He can't come over there. As soon as he comes over, both of them will die. Wouldn't that be the end of it? He Jichu couldn't tell what he was feeling. He took a deep breath and asked, what about the Xie family? Have you checked on the Xie family? He knew that He Xiaoheng's grandmother was Xie Zian, the eldest daughter of the Xie family. This person. He Qingjian frowned. To be honest, this person isn't easy to check, because even the Xie family might not know her whereabouts. He Jichu's heart tightened. What do you mean? She left the Xie family in her early years and joined the revolution. Later she went to the Soviet Union. There, she happened to encounter the Germans invading the Soviet Union, and there was no news of her after that. She hasn't contacted the Xie family for so many years, and they already think of her as a dead person. He Qingjian put on his reading glasses. Let me show you the information I found. He Jichu read through it quickly and breathed a sigh of relief. She probably died in the war. After all, that war had almost wiped out the entire population of that city in the Soviet Union. After a few days, the day to go to H City approached. Xiao Zhang wanted to buy a few gowns for formal occasions. She didn't want to take a lunch break at noon, so she dragged Gun Yanji shopping. Gun Yanji didn't want to dress up too grandly. Besides, He Jichu had already bought her gowns for all seasons. She could just choose a low-key one when the time came. However, there was a large shopping mall next to the Lu Corporation building. It wouldn't be bad to go shopping at noon as a way to digest her food. She chatted and laughed with Xiao Zhang as they walked out of the Lu Corporation building. Suddenly, a man in casual clothes walked over and said with a smile, Miss Gu, someone is here to see you. This way please. Gun Yanji looked up at the direction the man was pointing in. She saw a bulletproof car parked by the side of the road. It looked ordinary, but the license plate wasn't something an ordinary person could use. She walked over and the brown car window slowly rolled down. He Jichu smiled at her. Gun Yanji quickly turned around and said to Xiao Zhang, my friend came to see me from the capital. I can't accompany you to buy a gown. It's okay. Lawyer Gu, please help yourself. Xiao Zhang shrunk his neck when he was stared at by the man in casual clothes. He felt uncomfortable and immediately slipped away. Gun Yanji said to He Jichu, I still have to work in the afternoon. Apply for leave. He Jichu raised an eyebrow. I came specially to accompany you and celebrate your birthday in advance. Gun Yanji was stunned and nodded. Then I'll go apply for leave and get my bag. She returned to the law firm and told Lawyer Jean that a relative had come to visit her from the capital and that she wanted to apply for half a day's leave. Lawyer Jean agreed and reminded her, you're going to H City the day after tomorrow. Have you gotten your plane ticket? And your passport? I've helped you apply for a pass. You can also go to M City. You'll get it in the afternoon. Thank you, Lawyer Jean. Gun Yanji was very grateful to Lawyer Jean. He had taken good care of her. I'll come to work tomorrow. Give me the pass. Okay, go ahead. Entertain your relatives well. Lawyer Jean smiled and waved his hand. He lowered his head and continued to look at the resumes of the people who had come to apply for the job. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1505, I'm loyal to him. Yes, next is the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. There's an update for my moderator Meow Little Meow, at 8 p.m. because I've been threatened. If I don't add updates for her, I won't be able to pet the cat, moi all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1517. He Jichu took Gun Yanji to the best top-floor revolving restaurant in H City for dinner. He had booked the entire floor of the restaurant. There were only the two of them in the empty and vast space. In the dining room, A female pianist in a long skirt was playing an elegant and beautiful piano piece, accompanied by a handsome violinist. Hijichu had ordered the dishes a few days in advance. The red lobsters from Australia, the famous blue crabs from Maryland in the United States, the golden king crabs from Alaska, the wild Arctic shells from the deep sea of the North Atlantic, and the geoduck clams from British Columbia and Canada were all alive before they were served. Seafood eating was all about freshness. Gunyenji's tastes were very similar to Hijichu's. Although she didn't really want to celebrate her birthday, the delicacies quickly dispelled her gloomy mood and she ate happily. It was best to eat seafood with white wine. It could both enhance the taste and kill bacteria. Gunyenji wasn't old enough yet, so Hijichu didn't let her drink. He only ordered a glass of water for her without ice. This way it wouldn't ruin the original taste of the seafood. He ordered a bottle of Scottish Pomwaret Island Dallows whiskey and slowly ate with her. "Young Master you're so considerate." Gunyenji picked up her glass of water. "I'll use water instead of wine to toast young Master Hijichu's shimmering almond-shaped eyes flashed. He leisurely raised his glass and clinked it with hers. "Girl." Gunyenji ignored the affection in his tone and smiled. "I'm still a few days away from turning 20. Don't make me sound old." "Hijichu." He looked at her unhappily and lowered his head to take another sip of whiskey. His tone was indifferent with the unique coolness of whiskey. "I originally booked this meal on your birthday, but you're going to H City. I won't be able to accompany you on your birthday since you're going to H City." Gunyenji didn't think much of it. "You go ahead and do your thing. My trip to H City will be considered a vacation. Don't worry about me." "When are you going?" "I've already booked the plane tickets. It's the day after tomorrow." Gunyenji was very eager to talk to Xie Qingying. "Jean Dezhuang also applied for a pass for me. I can go to H City and M City at any time. I heard that after the celebration party, there'll be an after party at M City's casino." M City was known as the Las Vegas of the East, and gambling was their main industry. After a sumptuous seafood feast, a chef wearing a white tall hat pushed a cake cart over. There was a 9-tiered pagoda-shaped cake in the car. It was beautiful. Gunyenji was overjoyed. She pointed at the little beauty on the cake and said, "I want this little person. It's mine." Hijichu curled his lips. "It was made according to your appearance, so of course it's yours." The little doll had big eyes and an oval face. She had delicate dimples on the corners of her lips, and her long black hair was tied into a ponytail. She was beautiful and lively, and indeed looked better than the dolls that Gunyenji had played with as a child. The chef took the little beauty off the cake and gave it to Gunyenji. Hijichu took out his birthday present, a familiar pink diamond crown, and put it on Gunyenji's head. "Happy birthday." He leaned down and kissed Gunyenji on the cheek very naturally. Gunyenji smiled and a strange look flashed across her eyes. She looked at herself in the mirror in the dining room and realized that the pink diamond crown was exactly the same as the one she had in the other world. "Did my father buy this for me too?" Gunyenji asked nervously. Hijichu shook his head. "This is one of my betrothal gifts. My mother gave it to you when the two families were discussing the engagement." "How old was she at that time?" Gunyenji. Then she couldn't accept it. Gunyenji was about to take off the pink diamond crown when Hijichu pressed her hand down. "It's not a betrothal gift now. It's a birthday present from me to you. But it's too expensive." Gunyenji still wanted to take it off. "I don't have anywhere to put it here. What if I lose it?" "You should take it back and put it at your house." Hijichu thought about it and felt that it made sense. He nodded. "Then put it on and take a picture with me. I'll take it back." "Okay." Gunyenji agreed with a smile. She moved closer to stand beside Hijichu and asked his personal secretary to take a few photos of them. Gunyenji picked the best photos and sent them to her phone. After eating a piece of cake, Gunyenji couldn't eat any more. Looking at the remaining cake that was like a small mountain, Gunyenji said with a bitter expression, "What about the rest of the cake?" "You can give it to someone to eat." Hijichu waved his hand and asked his personal secretary to pay the bill. Gunyenji was happy. "Can you get someone here to send it to my company? I'll also send one to President Liu and Director Zhao." "Director Zhao?" Hijichu gave a half-smile. "Is it Zhao Liangzi?" He knew Zhao Liangzi from the other side, and he also knew that Zhao Liangzi didn't join the army but was the technical director of the Liu Corporation. Gunyenji didn't hide it. "Yes, it's him. Although he doesn't know me, he treats me well." The two of them ate for 2 to 3 hours. After dinner, Hijichu took a private plane back to the imperial capital. It was already dark when he returned to the imperial capital. When he came out of the airport and passed the intersection of the imperial capital's third ring road, he glanced at the traffic lights there. This was originally the coordinates where he had picked up Nianji, but for some reason the magnetic field suddenly became chaotic and the coordinates failed. Qin Jining didn't directly return Gu Nianji to the intersection. Instead, he landed on the Caribbean Sea Snake Island thousands of miles away. Yijichu felt that there was something wrong with this. However, after the scientists on their side checked, they kept saying that the magnetic resonance device had malfunctioned, which was why the coordinates were wrong. However, they had used the magnetic resonance device so many times without any problems. Why did it malfunction when they picked up Gu Nianji? Yijichu quietly looked at the intersection of the imperial capital's third ring road until it disappeared from his sight. At that moment, in the same place on the other side of the world, Hua Xiaoheng was walking alone on the sidewalk beside the third ring road with little Corgi on a dog leash. It was already the end of October. It had been almost 2 months since Gu Nianji had been kidnapped. The leaves of the maple trees by the roadside began to turn red, like umbrellas. In front of them was the intersection where Gu Nianji had disappeared. It was still bustling with traffic and bustling with activity. The moonlight was hazy, and the stars twinkled in the sky. A few young couples walked past him, humming softly. It was a song he had been listening to recently, If Love Had Providence. When we were young, we once thought that those who loved each other could last forever, when we believed that deep in love, we were together, that we could not hear the sigh in the wind. Who knows what love is? A short encounter, but we can't forget. After spending our entire lives, we can't learn to forget. Now that we're far apart, we live like the people around us. The person in front of me gives me the most trust and dependence. I hope you're treated gently. How many times have I been in a daze? It's as if I can see you in the sea of people. Vaguely, you've appeared. Hua Xiaoheng was in a daze for a moment. He seemed to see Gu Nianji running towards him with a smile. She hugged his arm and kept complaining, Major General Hua, why are you only here now? I've been waiting for you for a long time. He stopped in his tracks and looked ahead quietly. Suddenly, he was in so much pain that he sat down silently on a bench by the side of the road. The little corgi, Aku, barked at the intersection. Its little short legs jumped and jumped. It wanted nothing more than to rush to the middle of the intersection and bring its mistress back. He sat there until the sky turned white before he got up and left. When he returned to the official residence at the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces, he saw that the ginkgo tree in front of the door was covered in golden leaves that looked like small fans. Nianji had once used these leaves in her book as bookmarks. Now that the ground was covered in leaves, no one picked them up to make bookmarks anymore. After returning to his room, he changed his clothes and went to Gu Nianji's room to sit for a while. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, he could see the treehouse he had built for Gu Nianji. At that time, she loved this treehouse so much that she stayed in it day and night. She even said that she wanted to watch the bird's nest on the tree to prevent it from occupying the magpie's nest. Now that he thought about it, she must have had a premonition, right? Little Nianji, who had died young, was here, so where did she come from? The treehouse was still there, but Nianji was nowhere to be found. Little Corgi squatted at the entrance of the base every day, waiting anxiously, but he couldn't wait for his mistress to return. Hua Xiaoheng stood up silently and went back to his room. There were 2 pairs of slippers on the shoe rack at the door. One was big and the other was small. They were a couple's style. Gu Nianji had put them there. He went to the bathroom to wash up and prepare to rest. He saw that there were her usual facial cleansers, creams, and all kinds of powders and essences on the bathroom counter. The bottles and jars of all sizes were neatly arranged according to their height. His eyes dimmed. Lying on the bed, he casually flipped through the black t-shirt pajamas under Gu Nianji's pillow. She had secretly hidden his clothes, thinking that he didn't know. More than half of the closet was filled with her clothes, shoes, and bags. These things appeared by his side all the time, reminding him that there was once such a person who loved him like life itself. That day, Hua Xiaoheng went to the bathroom to wash up in the morning. He seemed to hear the sound of a woman playing around in the bedroom. He subconsciously said, Nianji, it's time to get up. After saying that, he realized that she was no longer there. He didn't know where she had gone. After holding back for so long, he finally couldn't suppress his emotions anymore. He turned on the faucet and let the water flow. With both hands on the bathroom counter, he buried his head for a long time. His shoulders trembled slightly, and he didn't dare to look at the changes in the mirror. Hua Xiaoheng thought that he couldn't continue living like this as if nothing had happened. He changed into his military uniform and saluted in the mirror. Then he drove alone to General Ji's house and asked to see him. Xiaoheng, what's the matter? Hua Xiaoheng's serious expression made General Ji very uneasy. General Ji, it's been almost 2 months since Nianji went missing. Her birthday is in a week. Hua Xiaoheng enunciated each word slowly. General Ji was stunned. But we're still looking, Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and continued, I've thought about it for a long time. From the first day I saw her, she has been by my side for so many years. Rather than saying that I took care of her, it would be more accurate to say that she and I depended on each other. But ever since she got together with me for the country and the troops, I've put her before the interests of the country, the troops, and even my comrades time and time again. I'm not complaining nor am I regretting it. As long as I wear a military uniform for a day, I'll do the same. Even if she stood in front of me today, I'd say the same to her. But now she's gone. It's like she never appeared. She's disappeared. I can no longer do anything, let alone fulfill my duties as a soldier. So, General Ji, I want to retire. After I take off this military uniform, I can put her first. I can see her as more important than anything else in my life, including my own life. I'm asking you to approve my application for retirement. Hua Xiaoheng stood upright in front of General Ji. The expression on his face was firm and unwavering. It was obvious that he had thought it through and was not acting on a whim. General Ji also looked at him for a long time. Xiaoheng, what do you think our country and our troops are? You've risked your life for our country and our troops for so many years. We will never stand by and watch you bleed, cry, and be heartbroken. Go find her, but don't retire. I will help you with all my strength. Our country, our troops, will use all our strength to help you find her. We will be your strong support. This is today's second update. Moderator Meow Little Meow has added an update, Chapter 1506. I hope you are treated gently. Well, next is the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly and recommendation tickets over. You can continue to pet the cat happily, moi, everyone, little angels. Chapter 1518. Hua Xiaoheng had been in the military for so many years. After making this decision, he was mentally prepared to give up everything. However, he did not expect that not only did General Ji not stop him, but he also strongly supported him in finding Nianji. What was even rarer was that he did not have to retire from the military. Even Hua Xiaoheng, who had always been calm and collected, was shocked speechless. He looked up at General Ji in disbelief. General Ji patted his shoulder and sighed. Now that things have come to this, I think it's time to tell you some things. The corners of Hua Xiaoheng's eyes twitched. I don't understand. General Ji picked up the red phone in the study and dialed a few numbers before saying to Hua Xiaoheng, let's go to the small meeting room of the standing committee. This small conference room had a level of security that was no less than that of the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. In a way, it was even better than the central control room. Because here, it was humans who made the important decisions, not machines. Hua Xiaoheng suppressed the doubts in his heart and followed General Ji to the small meeting room of the standing committee. There were already 6 other standing committee members waiting there. There was also someone Hua Xiaoheng didn't expect. His mother, Song Jining. Miss Song, why are you here? Hua Xiaoheng frowned and looked at her, then at the 7 standing committee members in the small conference room. There were a total of 15 standing committee members in the Huaxia Imperial Military Supreme Council, but 7 of them had a higher security level than the other 8. They were considered standing committee members among the standing committee members. The empire's greatest secret was held by these 7 members of the standing committee. Even his father, Hua Guanxin, one of the 15 members of the standing committee, wasn't here. Therefore, Song Jining's appearance was a complete surprise to Hua Xiaoheng. Song Jining was extremely beautiful and had the charm of someone much younger than her age. However, her current expression was very serious, completely lacking her usual relaxed and easygoing demeanor. She also glanced at Hua Xiaoheng and looked at General Ji inquiringly. General Ji, what do you mean? Is Xiaoheng's security clearance high enough? On this matter, I discussed it with the other 6 members of the standing committee and decided to give him special permission. General Ji nodded and extended his hand. Everyone please sit. The people in the room sat down around the round conference table. The 7 standing committee members, plus Song Jining and Hua Xiaoheng, made up a total of 9 people sitting around the round table. General Ji cleared his throat and was the first to speak. It's like this. Today Xiaoheng came to me and requested to be discharged from the army. Song Jining turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng in shock. She knew that in her son's heart, the interests of the country and the army were above everything else. Why would he take the initiative to retire? Hua Xiaoheng sat upright in his chair. He knew that everyone was looking at him. His eyes were slightly lowered and he was as still as a mountain. General Ji continued. Because he wanted to find Gun Yanji. Song Jining heaved a sigh of relief. So that was how it was. She sat next to Hua Xiaoheng and quietly reached out to hold Hua Xiaoheng's hand tightly as if she was cheering him on. Hua Xiaoheng returned the handshake to express his gratitude. He let go of Song Jining's hand without batting an eyelid, his expression unchanged. General Ji glanced at the other members of the standing committee, then looked at Song Jining and said, "Of course I don't agree with Xiaoheng's retirement. Besides, he's going to look for Gun Yanji. This matter doesn't conflict with his duties." Hua Xiaoheng? To him, looking for Gun Yanji was because he loved her. It was his private matter. How could it not conflict with his duties? Song Jining received General Ji's look and said, "So, you all agree to let Xiaoheng know about this?" Everyone nodded in unison. Song Jining turned on the laptop she had brought and connected it to the big screen in the small conference room. She said, "Then I'll say it." Hua Xiaoheng's gaze moved to the big screen with a slightly puzzled expression. "Xiaoheng, you know that the military worked with our Institute of High Energy Physics 17 years ago to conduct a magnetic field experiment. Do you know what the purpose was?" Song Jining looked at him seriously, with the sharpness and rigor of her usual experiments. Hua Xiaoheng thought for a moment and said, "For energy?" Generally speaking, when everyone heard the concept of a high-energy magnetic field, they would think of an emerging energy source. It was efficient, environmentally friendly, renewable, and sustainable. Yes and no. Song Jining pointed the laser pen in her hand at the big screen and said very calmly, "The emerging energy source is only a byproduct of the high-energy magnetic field research. In fact, our laboratory and the military worked together to start the high-energy magnetic field experiment, mainly to produce magnetic field resonance and open a path to parallel. The passage to the universe." Parallel universe? Hua Xiaoheng suddenly raised his head. His deep eyes were mixed with wildness and unbridled, like a sleeping tiger that had suddenly been awakened. "There really is a parallel space. How did you think of starting this experiment? Who else knows about this secret experiment? What about Baijini? Does she know?" Hua Xiaoheng had undergone many years of professional training, and his sense of confidentiality was deeply rooted in his bones. As soon as he heard the true purpose of the experiment, he immediately thought of the possibility of a leak. Song Jining was familiar with the contents of the experiment, but she didn't know what Hua Xiaoheng had asked. Therefore, General Ji took over the topic and spoke with confidence. "The start of this experiment was first proposed by your uncle, Senior Colonel Hua Guanyuan. At that time he didn't say where he got the information from, but now we know that it was Gu Xiangwen who contacted him and told him that 2 countries were already conducting high-energy magnetic field experiments in this area. These 2 countries were the United States and Japan. Since they have already started this experiment, we can't fall behind. Due to well-known reasons, among these 2 countries the United States is fine, but Japan is very alarming. If Japan finds the passage to the parallel space first, it might mean another tragic fate of falling behind and being beaten up for our country. And our country and people can no longer withstand such 100 years of devastation. Therefore, after the military received the news, they sent many people to the United States and Japan to investigate. After losing dozens of elite field personnel, they finally found that this information was true. For example, Japan has the famous high-energy physicist Ishihara Baisan leading this magnetic field experiment. Needless to say, the United States is led by all the leading physicists. Under these circumstances, we decided to start this project. At that time, because this experiment was very likely related to the survival of our country for the next 100 years, we listed it as Top Secret Plan A. Among all the top secrets, this was the top one, and it was stipulated that the person who knew this information must be a member of the Standing Committee of the Military Supreme Council, which is the 7-member group. In addition, the military sent a liaison person to cooperate with the Institute of High Energy Physics, which is your uncle Hua Guanyuan, and the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. In other words, the number of people who know this information will always be a maximum of 9 people, not 1 more. Our 7-member group is the Standing Committee of the Standing Committee. We are all lifelong, so we don't have to worry about leaks. The first liaison person was Hua Guanyuan, and this plan was proposed by him. Of course, we don't have to worry about him leaking information. At that time, the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, Song Haichuan, was only told the truth after a strict assessment. We also set up a strict assessment procedure to assess the second liaison person and the second director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. Later, as you know, the experiment failed. The magnetic resonance caused a huge amount of energy to be uncontrollable. In the end, it led to a big explosion which almost razed the entire experimental building to the ground. Other than your mother, Song Jining, all the experimenters, experimental equipment and experimental records inside were lost. Later, when the bodies were counted, we found that your uncle, Huo Guanyuan, and 4 soldiers had disappeared without a trace. And your mother's brain also fell into a state of mental disorder due to the impact of the magnetic field explosion, and she forgot a large part of her memories. Under these circumstances, we sealed the truth of the experiment. Later, Bai Jini took over as the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. She failed our assessment, so we didn't tell her the truth about the magnetic field experiment. She didn't know what these magnetic field experiments were for, so she turned the experiment in the direction of using high-energy magnetic field experiments to study new energy sources. It wasn't until your mother recovered from her illness and took over as the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics. She found some experimental notes left by your grandfather, Song Haichuan, at home and asked us for confirmation. That's why we restarted her assessment. Fortunately, Director Song passed our assessment, so the 7 of us told her the truth about the experiment and decrypted the top-secret Plan A. Director Song didn't let us down. He really kept this secret. Even when his own son was in great trouble, he didn't reveal anything. General Ji sincerely praised Song Jining's ability to keep secrets. Huo Xiaoheng's profession was intelligence and confidentiality, so he didn't have the slightest resentment towards Song Jining. Public was public and private was private. He was very clear about that. Hearing this, Huo Xiaoheng had some ideas. He asked calmly, "So, does all of this have anything to do with Nianji's disappearance?" "I think you already understand. When I was reporting this discovery, I had already reported it to the 7-member group of the Standing Committee of the Military Supreme Council," Song Jining said calmly. "At that time, when I was examining the video of the intersection of the 3rd Ring Road, I found traces of magnetic resonance." Huo Xiaoheng's pupils suddenly constricted. The doubts in his heart had been confirmed. His hands clenched and unclenched repeatedly under the conference table, and his heart pounded. General Ji nodded. At that time, Director Song made a separate report to the 7 of us. She inferred that Gu Nianji should have been abducted to the parallel space on the opposite side. This is the first update of the day, Chapter 1507, An Unexpected Accident. Happy New Year to everyone on the first day of the new year. Yes, next is the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. At 8 o'clock in the evening, there will be an update for my moderator, Momo Moshi. I have no choice. She threatened to abduct me if I don't add updates for her. P.S. Thank you Sing_Sing for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Thank you Little One Kiss for the 10,000 Chidian coins this morning. Congratulations to Little One Kiss for becoming the 27th leader of the Great Major General. Moi little angels. Chapter 1519. Huo Xiaoheng closed his eyes as if his worst guess had been confirmed, and the other shoe on his head had truly fallen to the ground. In his shock, he was also trying his best to digest this shocking news. The conference room was silent. After a long time, Huo Xiaoheng opened his eyes and said calmly, "Then how can we go to the parallel space on the other side?" Theoretically, as long as the magnetic field on our side resonates at the same frequency as the magnetic field on the other side, the space on both sides can open a passage. Song Jining used her laptop to demonstrate the opening of the spatial passage on both sides. But for us, this is just theory. In fact, we've never succeeded. She paused and continued, "From the looks of it, the other dimension has already mastered this technology very well. This is the difference between us. How could he not be proficient when he could kidnap someone from their side? It could be imagined that the other space was a world with much higher technology than theirs. For them, it was almost a crushing existence." General Ji looked at Huo Xiaoheng's disappointed expression and couldn't bear it. He immediately said, "Director Song, didn't you say a few days ago that you had a huge breakthrough in the research of high-energy magnetic fields?" "Yes, it is indeed a huge breakthrough compared to 17 years ago." Song Jining tilted her head and pondered. "But this breakthrough hasn't been tested. I can't guarantee complete success." She looked at everyone in the small conference room and said slowly, "Do you still remember the consequences of the failure of the last experiment?" Can we afford another failure like this? Even many times? The 7 members of the standing committee in the small conference room weren't ordinary people, but even they felt uneasy when they thought of the huge explosion 17 years ago. Hua Xiaoheng was anxious inside, but he maintained his composure on the surface. He said calmly, "It's okay. If there are still sacrifices to be made, it starts with me." Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng. General Ji and Song Jining yelled at the same time, "What are you saying?" "I'm telling you the truth." Hua Xiaoheng looked sharply at Song Jining and General Ji. "What's the point of this technology if we don't experiment and forever remain in a computer demonstration? Don't tell me you can get into the other dimension from the computer?" Song Jining choked and frowned. "I didn't say I wouldn't do the experiment. I'm only reminding you of the sacrifices and losses you may face. It's not insurmountable." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her. "Last time, you didn't control the energy of the magnetic resonance well and directly blew up the laboratory. This time we can conduct the experiment in the wild. This way, even if there is an explosion, only a few people participating in the experiment will be affected. I'm signing up to be the first batch of people to participate in the experiment." Song Jining knew why Hua Xiaoheng was so anxious. Logically, she also wanted the experiment to succeed. But when it came to science and technology, there was no room for recklessness or impatience. She spread her hands and said, "This kind of experiment requires a very high level of authorization. Previously, the group of 7 didn't agree and there was nothing I could do." She looked at the 7 standing committee members helplessly. General Ji said ruefully, "It's not that we don't want to agree, but the cost of the previous experiment's failure was too great, so we still need to study it." Song Jining chuckled and intentionally reminded Hua Xiaoheng, "I'm afraid it's also because Japan's high-energy physicist, Ishihara Bai-san, suddenly committed seppuku, causing Japan's high-energy magnetic field research to lag behind by 50 years. That's why we're not so anxious anymore, right?" Hua Xiaoheng's heart skipped a beat. He understood and immediately said, "Ishihara Bai-san committed seppuku because he was provoked by Gu Xiangwen. He's Nianji's father and has made such a great contribution to our country. Are you going to watch his daughter wander into an unknown world? Are you worthy of the martyr's painstaking efforts?" General Ji and the 6 standing committee members looked at each other and nodded slightly. "What do you think? Since the other party is already able to come and go freely in our world, we have to catch up. It's not too late to make up for it now." After the 7 of them reached an agreement, General Ji looked at Song Jining and said solemnly, "We now authorize you to officially start the field experiment and strive to open the passage to the other side of the space as soon as possible." Reporting to Chief, Major General Hua Xiaoheng of the Special Operations Forces has signed up to be the first experimenter to go to the other side of the space. Hua Xiaoheng immediately stood up and volunteered. "I know you're anxious." General Ji smiled and shook his head. "But you still have to be careful. Xiaoheng, we've already lost your uncle. We can't afford to lose you." He was hinting at Song Jining. This time the experiment could only succeed. Failure was not allowed. After half a year of research on high-energy magnetic fields, Song Jining had actually made a great breakthrough in how to control the huge energy produced when the magnetic field resonated. However, in front of this 7-man team, she still tried her best to magnify the possibility of failure. Only then would they be cautious and not easily start the field experiment. This was because the probability of failure was just a number to others, but to the people involved in the experiment, it was a matter of life and death. She had to be cautious. After the meeting, Hua Xiaoheng was appointed as the new top-secret Plan A liaison. He was in charge of communication between the military and the Institute of High-Energy Physics. They immediately chose a large open space in the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces as the experimental site. They only wanted to test how much energy the magnetic field resonated with. Song Jining's careful preparations, 17 years of accumulation and recent close-up observations of high-energy magnetic fields made her first field experiment very successful. When the frequency of the magnetic field resonance was displayed on her instrument, their entire experimental site trembled and blurred. The blue sky rippled in her field of vision, like the surface of the sea moving without any wind. The trees around the site made a rustling sound, looking like an ink landscape painting that was faintly discernible. Although this blurry turbulence was very short, so short that only special instruments could detect traces, this tremor had already been transmitted to the opposite space. At the same time, the high-energy physics team of the Huaxia Empire's military in the opposite world received the frequency of this tremor resonance. Their surveillance equipment even captured an instant image from the opposite space. Reporting Chief. The team leader of the high-energy physics team has important news to report. He Qingjian's personal secretary came to the door of his study and said loudly. He Qingjian was reading a document. When he heard this, he pressed the button and opened the door of the study. Let him in. The team leader of the high-energy physics team was also a soldier. He said nervously, reporting, Chief, we have observed that the magnetic resonance research in the opposite world seems to have achieved a huge breakthrough. He Qingjian raised his head abruptly and took off his presbyopic glasses. What did you say? They made a breakthrough so quickly? That's impossible. The team leader was also puzzled. According to the information we received, their technology shouldn't have developed so quickly. I wonder if... He glanced at He Qingjian. Under his sharp gaze, he mustered up his courage and said, Did someone on our side leak the secret? He was alluding to He Zhichu and Wen Shui. The two of them had been to the opposite world, but they hadn't undergone the memory-stripping surgery. That's even more impossible. He Qingjian denied it flatly. The two of them don't even know the principle of magnetic resonance. Even if they wanted to leak the secret, they wouldn't be able to. But how did the opposite world suddenly achieve a technological breakthrough? The team leader of the high-energy physics team couldn't figure it out at all. They clearly made a major mistake before. There was a big explosion 17 years ago, and the shockwaves were all transmitted to our side. He Qingjian frowned. Since they had such research 17 years ago and were even more advanced than us, it's not strange for them to restart the experiment now, so it's not a major breakthrough. But why did they stop after they failed once? I'm not sure. The team leader of the high-energy physics team had actually relied on the magnetic resonance instrument developed by Gu Xiangwen to open the channel. Without Gu Xiangwen, their technology wouldn't be much stronger than the opposite world. Show me your surveillance footage, He Qingjian said in a low voice. The team leader quickly asked someone to send over their surveillance footage. They were in He Qingjian's study watching the very short video from the opposite world. This person is? He Qingjian pressed the pause button and stared at the big screen with wide eyes. On the big screen, a tall soldier appeared. He was wearing a military uniform, but he didn't wear a military hat. He was facing them. Although the resolution was very low, they could tell that this man was extraordinarily handsome. He Qingjian recognized him. It was Hua Xiaoheng. He knew this person very well. He Qingjian immediately understood why the opposite world had once again started the field experiment of magnetic resonance. Because Hua Xiaoheng wanted to come over. He wanted to find Gu Nianji. They had actually already discovered that Gu Nianji had been brought back here. He Qingjian's thoughts were in a mess, and his emotions were extremely complicated. He was happy that the Huaxia Empire on the other side had obtained such a technological breakthrough. After all, they were born of the same origin, and their interests didn't conflict. However, their technological breakthrough meant that they could come to this world, and it also meant that Gu Nianji might not be able to stay here with her son. He Qingjian gritted his teeth and quickly made a series of arrangements. You go back first and prepare the magnetic field energy for me. I want a video talk to the other party. The team leader was shocked. Huh? You want to reveal your identity? Their experiment has already reached this point. Do you think we can still hide it? He Qingjian rolled his eyes at him. Just carry out my orders. You don't need to question my decision. Yes, Chief. The team leader jogged out of He Qingjian's study. He Qingjian called his country's field office in the Soviet Union again. Check again immediately. Where exactly did Xie Zian die in the Soviet Union? I want to see her if she's alive, and I want to see her body if she's dead. He had made this request 3 years ago. At that time, the field office in the Soviet Union had tracked down the last place Xie Zian had appeared. It was during the battle where the city was almost destroyed. Since there were almost no survivors in the city at that time, the news from the field office was that Xie Zian's whereabouts were unknown, because they didn't dare to be 100% sure that she had died in that battle. Because her remains hadn't been found. This time He Qingjian wanted them to confirm if she had died there. These field offices hadn't given up on tracking down Xie Zian's whereabouts for the past 3 years. After receiving He Qingjian's order, they confirmed once again that Xie Zian's whereabouts were still unknown. That was because there had been a big fire in the city's cemetery that had burned everyone together. To identify a person from thousands of ashes? Sorry, even a god couldn't do it. So there was probably only one way to prove whether Xie Zian was dead or alive. When He Qingjian received the news, he had an idea. He took his laptop and immediately went to the high-energy physics team's laboratory. He asked, "How long can our remaining magnetic field energy last for the video call?" "Reporting to Chief, at most 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we almost don't even have the energy to monitor. Then give me 9 minutes to activate the quantum communicator. I want a video talk to the other party. Yi Qingjian sat behind a desk and aimed at the camera. He had his laptop in front of him. Not long after, the video phone in General Ji's study of the Wuxia Empire's military in the opposite world rang. General Ji poked his head out to take a look and saw a strange 4-digit number. This was today's second update. It was sent to Chapter 1508, starting with me. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1520. This kind of number was either an internal line or a wrong number. General Ji wasn't familiar with this 4-digit number at all. It definitely wasn't an internal line, but if it was a wrong number, it was amazing that it could reach his study. There were 3 landlines in his study. The most powerful one was the red landline. The other 2 landlines were for different work needs. There was also a video phone for remote meetings. It was this video phone that had just been dialed. General Ji's finger hesitated for a moment between the accept and reject buttons of the video phone. He wanted to press the reject button, but his finger slipped and he pressed the accept button. The video phone in his study was instantly connected. A man wearing the same Wuxia general's uniform appeared on the video phone. It could be seen that this man was old. His sideburns were white, but his eyebrows were firm and handsome. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he gave off the feeling that he had been in a superior position for a long time. General Ji's mind buzzed. Who was this person? He had never seen him before. Why was he wearing the military uniform of the Wuxia Empire's general? There were only a handful of generals in the Wuxia Empire, and he never remembered this man among them. This man was the military general Yi Qingjian of the parallel world. He didn't have much time, so he didn't give General Ji any more time to wonder. He said, "Hello General Ji. I'm Yi Qingjian. I'm the general of the Wuxia Empire in the parallel world. My position is the same as yours." The parallel world. This was someone from a parallel universe. General Ji's pupils constricted, but he quickly regained his composure. He placed one hand on the desk without moving, but his other hand had already quietly pressed the alarm button on the desk. He didn't sound the alarm because he didn't want to alert the enemy. It wouldn't be good if Yi Qingjian was scared back. Therefore he activated the alarm button. When the alarm button sounded, it meant that the situation was very complicated and needed to be kept confidential. This kind of alarm system was connected to the Military Security Office and Hua Xiaoheng's Special Operations Forces. Within 10 minutes, these people would secretly rush to his office. Yi Qingjian saw that General Ji didn't move at all and didn't show any signs of shock. He also admired him. Only such a person was worthy of being his opponent. Yi Qingjian's expression softened slightly. He nodded and said calmly, "I contacted you today to give you a piece of advice." He paused and said word by word, "Do not attempt to open the passage to our spacetime." General Ji calmed down and sneered. "Are you saying that only the officials are allowed to set fires, but the citizens are not allowed to light lamps? General He, do I need to repeat what you've done in our world?" Yi Qingjian smiled. "General Ji, there's no point in saying harsh words. If I wanted to, the entire upper echelons of the empire would have been annihilated during the military parade 2 months ago." "What do you mean?" General Ji's heart sank. "Speak clearly." He was trying his best to stall for time until Hua Xiaoheng and the military police arrived. But Yi Qingjian only had 9 minutes in total. He tried to keep it short. On the video call, Yi Qingjian's image disappeared. It was replaced by General Ji and the others' military parade in Rai City more than 2 months ago. From the moment Hua Xiaoheng's military plane suddenly encountered a hurricane, to the moment he was locked onto by a portable surface-to-air missile from the Rai City military base and had no choice but to parachute to escape. On the day of the military parade, the surface-to-air missile system had locked onto the rostrum. General Ji's face was ashen. He looked at the video of himself, Speaker Long, Prime Minister Bai, and 15 members sitting on the rostrum and chatting happily. It was as if he had taken a walk through the gates of hell. His hands began to tremble uncontrollably, and his face turned purple with anger. "General He, what do you mean? Are you trying to catch us all in one fell swoop? Are you from the Wuxia Empire?" Yi Qingjian didn't care about General Ji's reprimand. He said calmly, "Of course I'm from the Wuxia Empire. Although I'm from the other dimension, we were born from the same root. There's no need to be anxious. If I really wanted to deal with you, you would already be dead." "Then what do you mean?" You invaded our airspace, manipulated our weather to create a hurricane, and then controlled our missiles to aim at our rostrum. You want me to believe that you have no ill intentions. General G slammed the table and stood up. Do you think I'm a fool? General G, please calm down. He Qingjian's image appeared on the video, and he pressed his hands down. I'm doing all this to tell you that our technology is much more advanced than yours, so don't even think about fighting us. Also, I have no ill intentions towards you because I'm doing all this to bring back my daughter-in-law, Gunyanji. She was engaged to my son when she was young and came to your world by accident. I thank you for taking care of her for 7 years. Now that she's home, please don't continue to harass her. Yanji was indeed kidnapped by you. General G sneered with his hands behind his back. Stop talking. You don't have to worry about what we should do. Haha, General G, don't brag. There's one more thing I want to tell you, He Qingjian said as he released the top-secret information on their side. It was the video of the soldiers experimenting with the parallel space of the other world. It was also the video that Gunyanji had seen before. In those videos they saw the terrifying scene of people from the other world suddenly dying for no reason. General G's face turned pale. He stared at the video and was extremely nervous. What's going on? This is the physical principle of parallel space. He Qingjian's voice was heard unhurriedly. The counterpart of a parallel space cannot exist in the same spacetime at the same time. In layman's terms, if they appear in the same spacetime, both of them will die. What counterpart? What couldn't exist at the same time? Was he talking about the heavenly book? General G didn't understand at all. He Qingjian couldn't explain it clearly in such a short period of time. He only left these videos and said, ask your high-energy physicists. Since they can figure out magnetic resonance, they will understand what I'm saying. Do you think that our technology is so much better than yours? But why didn't we come on a large scale? It's because this is a lose-lose situation. Neither of us can afford such a huge loss. If you're stubborn, then feel free to send people over. Let me tell you, any of your magnetic field experiments are under our surveillance. After He Qingjian finished speaking, he showed General G the surveillance video they had just captured. Look, this is the experiment you just did. Our surveillance cameras discovered it and have already recorded it. Any of your movements are under our control. He Qingjian smiled meaningfully and said half-truths. The person who participated in the experiment was your Major General Hua Xiaoheng, right? We also have Hua Xiaoheng on our side. I'm going to invite him to the imperial capital as a guest soon. Of course, if you promise not to open the passageway, I'll seal the passageway on our side. From now on, we won't have any dealings with each other. Finally, he said, also, Gunyanji is doing very well with us. This is her home. She will marry my son. On our side, there will be no woman more honorable and happier than her in the future. He Qingjian then played the photos and videos of Gunyanji and He Zhichu getting along with each other. He said, tell your subordinate, Hua Xiaoheng, to give up. After saying that, 9 minutes were up and he cut off the video. He Qingjian's video call had just ended when the unique doorbell rang from General G's study. This was their secret signal. But it was useless now. General G quickly pulled down the phone cord of the video call and physically cut off any possibility of a call. Come in, he said into the intercom and remotely opened the door. Hua Xiaoheng and the head of the military police rushed in together. General G, what's going on? General G looked at Hua Xiaoheng and said, go to the small meeting room of the standing committee and call the other 7 people, including Director Song. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed. Yes, Chief. 5 minutes later, the 7-member military standing committee, Hua Xiaoheng, and Song Jining met again in the small meeting room of the standing committee. The military's video call facilities all had an automatic recording function. General G played the video call He Qingjian had just had with him to everyone. Of course, he had cut out the last minute's content, which was the photos and videos of Gunyanji and He Zhichu. He did not play them for everyone to see. He planned to show it to Hua Xiaoheng alone in private. Even though he had cut out 1 minute, the 8-minute video call was still a lot of information. After the video was played, everyone in the small meeting room was in extreme shock. Everyone was silent for a full 10 minutes before someone asked, Director Song, is the parallel space physics principle that General He mentioned in the video true? Everything else was fine, but this principle was 2F** ket up. If that was the case, then their experiment really didn't have much meaning. This was a zero-sum game where they killed 1,000 enemies and lost 1,000 of their own. Everyone's expressions were a little ugly. Song Jining was also dumbfounded. After a while, she said with difficulty, in theory there are no loopholes. However, I still need to further reason and prove it. What else is there to reason about? The other side has already used their lives to prove this theory. A member of the standing committee slammed the conference table. I suggest that the experiment be sealed immediately. There's no need to continue. Originally, they had started the experiment because they were worried that Japan would open the passage to the other side first. However, if there was this layer of physics that bound them, then even if they opened the passage it wouldn't be very meaningful. Because it was impossible to communicate on a large scale. Small-scale squabbles were of no practical use at the national level. Wu Xiaoheng stood behind Song Jining. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and he was bone-chilling from head to toe. How could this be? He looked at Song Jining as if asking for help. Song Jining pursed her lips tightly and stood up as well. I don't think we should rush to conclusions. Even if the theory that the parallel space can't exist in the same spacetime at the same time is true, we can't give up just like that. Director Song, what else do you want? If you can't overcome this physical principle, do you really want our soldiers to fight with their lives like those poor soldiers in the other world? To verify the physical principle for you? Reporting. I beg you to give Director Song more time. Wu Xiaoheng tried his best to fight for Song Jining to continue the experiment. After all, what we just received was the other side's statement. It was a one-sided statement. Song Jining came back to her senses and said, Xiaoheng is right. In scientific experiments, we can't just listen to what others say. If we want to master this technology, we need to practice it ourselves. With the lives of our soldiers? A member of the standing committee crossed his arms in dissatisfaction and frowned. Song Jining pursed her lips. The other side used the lives of the soldiers to verify this principle. That's because they didn't know about this before. It was an unintentional mistake. They didn't mean to use the lives of the soldiers to experiment. And now we know that we don't need to use humans to experiment. It's the same with animals. General Ji's mind was in a mess when he heard their verbal sparring. He raised his hand and said, Stop arguing. We have to treat this matter seriously. He looked at Song Jining. Director Song, you can continue the experiment, but I forbid you from using soldiers and human lives to do this experiment. Song Jining quickly promised, Since I know there's this danger, I won't treat human lives like grass. And you? General Ji glared at Wu Xiaoheng. From today onwards you'll stay by my side. You can't go anywhere. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1509, Too much information. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. At 8 p.m., the monthly votes would be 2,500 plus updates. P.S. Thank you to Cute Little Corgi and Little Your Auntie for the 10,000 Chidian coins each yesterday. Cute Little Corgi. Why does this name sound so familiar? Moi, everyone little angels. Chapter 1521. General Ji was worried that Wu Xiaoheng would disregard everything and run to his death on the other side. Agreed. Stay and help General Ji with his work. The other 6 members of the standing committee expressed their agreement. No one would agree to send Wu Xiaoheng to his death when they knew that the other world also had Wu Xiaoheng. Although Wu Xiaoheng was burning with anxiety, his expression remained the same. In the face of the 7 members of the standing committee, he calmly said, Yes, Chief. After the meeting, Song Jining looked at Wu Xiaoheng worriedly and whispered, Don't worry, I'll continue to think of a solution. However, if Wu Xiaoheng also exists in the other world, you definitely cannot go there. Going over was tantamount to courting death. As a senior high-energy physicist, when she heard General He Qingjian mention the principle of parallel space physics in the video, her intuition told her that this theory was completely valid. The parallel space at the microscopic level was very similar to the situation of particles and antiparticles. Therefore, at the macroscopic level, it was very likely that the corresponding bodies on both sides of the space also had positive and negative particle properties. However, if they appeared in the same spacetime, they would be annihilated at the same time, which was death. Wu Xiaoheng didn't know how to answer this question. If there really was another Wu Xiaoheng on the other side and if the situation shown in the video was real, then it seemed that only death would await him if he went over. Wu Xiaoheng thought about it for a long time and said, Can you prove this theory first? Without harming anyone? Song Jining rubbed her temples and said with a headache, They're monitoring us. I have to think of a way to bypass their surveillance first. Also, she paused. This kind of experiment consumes a lot of energy. I can't do too many meaningless experiments. They really did not expect that when they thought that there would be a huge breakthrough in magnetic field technology, there would be a new problem in front of them. Song Jining was not afraid of these obstacles on her scientific research path. But to solve the problem he needed time. She didn't know how long it would take this time. After everyone left, General Ji brought Hua Xiaoheng back to his study. "Xiaoheng, sit." General Ji pointed at the sofa in his study and said, "Actually, there's still 1 minute of today's video that I didn't play." "I don't understand what you mean." Hua Xiaoheng didn't know what was going on and was a little nervous. He put his hand on the armrest of the sofa and slowly sat down. His expression was solemn, not as calm as he usually was. General Ji sighed and played the original video. "Watch it yourself. I'm going out for a smoke." After General Ji left, he left Hua Xiaoheng alone in the study. Hua Xiaoheng sat quietly on the sofa and watched the video he had just watched replay one by one. At the last minute, he heard the man named He Qingjian say, "Also, Gu Nianji is doing very well with us. This is her home. She will marry my son. In the future, no woman on our side will be more honorable and happier than her. Tell your subordinate, Hua Xiaoheng, to give up." Next up were some photos and videos of Gu Nianji and He Zhichu. On the hot air balloon she was with a child and He Zhichu just like a family of 3. The scene changed to a living room. Gu Nianji leaned her head against He Zhichu's shoulder. He Zhichu's eyes sparkled with joy as he reached out and hugged Gu Nianji's shoulder even tighter. After the 9-minute video call ended, Hua Xiaoheng sat stiffly on the sofa and was speechless for a long time. The only thing he could be glad about was that she was doing well on the other side. However, the anxiety and uneasiness in his heart did not lessen. What was he going to do? Was Hua Xiaoheng on the other side? After sending a warning to the other world, He Qingjian breathed a sigh of relief. This matter had finally been resolved satisfactorily. He no longer had to worry about any tricks from the other side. Moreover, even if they could open the passageway at all costs, the energy consumption would be unimaginable. In the past few years, with their technological prowess and the power of the entire country, they had opened the passageway less than 10 times before their energy was almost depleted. Of course, the most recent time to bring Gu Nianji back had used up too much energy. It was so much that the previous time's energy combined wasn't as much as this time. Otherwise, their energy wouldn't have been depleted so quickly. He Qingjian was also a little uneasy. He changed another group of people to investigate the problem of the magnetic field energy to see if they could come to the same conclusion. He sat down and had just taken a sip of coffee when his internal phone rang. "General He, we received news that Dresden, an employee of the United States Department of Homeland Security, suddenly left the United States with important information. He took a plane to our Huaxia Empire's H city and has already entered the country." He Qingjian listened to their briefing as he called his personal secretary over. "Where's Zhichu? Have you seen him?" "Major General, he has gone to C City. He's on the plane back." His personal secretary knew that He Qingjian cared about his son the most, so he kept a close eye on He Zhichu's movements so that he could deal with his boss's constant inquiries. He Qingjian looked at his watch. "I'll go to a meeting first. When he comes back, ask him to come directly to the secret meeting room." He Zhichu celebrated Gu Nianji's birthday early and took a private plane back to the imperial capital. As soon as he got off the plane, he was taken by a military vehicle from the airport to the secret meeting room at the military headquarters. Here, the 10 members of the Standing Committee of the Military Supreme Council were meeting. He Zhichu was called in by them and assigned him a job. "Our spies in the United States have received top-secret information. Dresden, an employee of the United States Department of Homeland Security, suddenly took a long leave of absence from Hawaii on the grounds of medical treatment. We just found out that he has entered our country and is heading to H City. It's reported that he has very important information on him that has a lot to do with our national security. Now, the CIA has issued a secret order to kill him at all costs and retrieve all the information he took away. The KGB of the Soviet Union wants to bring him to the Soviet Union. Major General He, this time, you will work with the KGB of the Soviet Union to fight against the CIA. The intelligence network that the United States has operated in H City for many years is now fully mobilized." He Zhichu had just gotten off the plane when he received such a mission. He asked in surprise. He went to H City? What a coincidence. Gu Nianji was also going to H City the day after tomorrow. However, He Zhichu was only thinking about it. He was going to H City to carry out a mission this time, so it was impossible for him to meet Gu Nianji in private. However, when he thought about how he would be in the same city as her on her birthday and enjoy the same sea breeze, his mood improved. He said calmly, We will definitely stop them. He Qingjian looked at him with relief. Jichu, this is your first mission after returning to the team. You must be careful. Yes, Chief. He Jichu said casually, this intelligence says that the KGB of the Soviet Union will also go to H City? No, they won't go to H City. They will wait for you in M City. Your mission is to escort this person from H City to M City and let the KGB of the Soviet Union take over. A top-secret document was placed in front of He Jichu. You have to remember to connect with the KGB of the Soviet Union. Their meeting lasted from afternoon to night and didn't end until the sky was full of stars. The preliminary plan of action had been drawn up. He Jichu went back to select his most elite men to carry out this secret mission. Gu Nianji finally got on the plane to H City. She wore casual sportswear that was convenient for travel and dragged a small LV suitcase to the airport. When she was checking in at the boarding gate, Gu Nianji actually saw Bai Shuang, who was also wearing casual sportswear. This plane was flying directly to H City. Was Bai Shuang also going to H City? Gu Nianji couldn't help walking over and poking her on the back. She smiled and said, Bai Shuang? Bai Shuang, who was practicing her English speaking and listening with headphones on, was shocked. She turned around and saw that it was Gu Nianji. She quickly laughed and patted her chest. Why is it you, Miss Gu? What a coincidence. The two of them had met once at the underground bar of the Hilton Hotel. Gu Nianji giggled. Yes, what a coincidence. Miss Bai, are you going to H City? Yes. Bai Shuang said readily, our company is a translation company. I graduated from the School of Foreign Languages. The company gave me a job to go to H City to be a personal translator for an American. Gu Nianji nodded. I see. We're going to H City for a meeting. Contact me when you have time? She gestured to make a phone call. Bai Shuang nodded with a smile. Okay, what's your phone number? The two of them exchanged contact details, and soon it was Gu Nianji's turn to board the plane. Bai Shuang realized that Gu Nianji had a first-class ticket in her hand, so she had priority boarding. She didn't think too much about it. She smiled and waved at her, watching her walk through the boarding gate first. After getting on the plane, Gu Nianji realized that among the 3 people invited to their law firm, she was the only one who had a first-class ticket. Jean Dezhuang and Xiao Zhang were both in business class. Most of the first-class passengers were senior executives of the Lu Corporation, as well as partners and lawyers from the 4 major law firms. She was a little embarrassed. She dawdled and wanted to exchange a ticket with someone to go to business class. But not long after she stood up, Lu Yuan walked over with Zhao Liangzi and greeted her with a smile. Lawyer Gu? Why don't you sit down? Can't you find a seat? Gu Nianji said embarrassedly. Is there a mistake? I'm the only one in first class. My boss and colleagues are all in business class. Lu Yuan was speechless for a moment, but he looked at the seat of the ticket in her hand and said calmly, maybe the tourism department booked the wrong seat. Just sit anywhere. It's only 2 hours. Gu Nianji felt that if she insisted, she would be making a mountain out of a molehill. She sat down awkwardly and turned to look at the scenery outside the plane window. Not long after, a man with oily hair and a powdered face sat down next to her and asked, Beauty, are you traveling alone? Gu Nianji. She didn't want to talk to him, so she pretended not to hear him and didn't turn around. Beauty, you're quite arrogant. The man didn't give up. He crossed the gap between the two of them and moved closer to her. Although Gu Nianji had turned her head, he could see her delicate and fair neck. She turned her body sideways, accentuating her tall breasts and slender waist. Her long legs were especially seductive. The man's fiery gaze swept over Gu Nianji's chest, waist and buttocks. Gu Nianji couldn't help it anymore. Just as she was about to teach this man a lesson, she suddenly heard a cold and slightly mocking voice ring out from the aisle next to their seats. B*T*, are you blind, or did you not graduate from kindergarten? You can't even see 1 2 3 4 5 ABCD clearly? Gu Nianji turned around in surprise and saw a tall and thin man with an extremely ordinary appearance. He was angrily yelling at the man with oily hair and a powdered face sitting next to her. This is the second monthly ticket for today, 2,500 plus updates, sent to Chapter 1510, what a coincidence. Yes, next is the time to ask for votes. Monthly tickets and recommendation tickets. Don't be careless and throw them over. Moi, everyone, little angels. Chapter 1522. The man with the oily hair and powdered face couldn't take it anymore after being called a B***th in front of so many people in first class. Most of the people who could sit in first class were people of status. How could they withstand this kind of humiliation? The greasy-haired man's face darkened and he shook his ticket. Watch your mouth. I also have a first-class ticket. Even if I sat in the wrong seat, do you have to curse? Do you have any manners? The tall and thin man glanced at the ticket that the oily hair and powdered face showed. He frowned slightly and said, Zhou Yaozu? Your seat should be 05B, which is the last seat in first class near the toilet. How can you have the face to sit in such a good seat as 02B? Even in the first-class cabin there were differences in the seats. Zhou Yaozu stood up with a sneer and raised his head. Can I see wrongly? You keep calling me a B*TC. How uncultured. No matter how uncultured I am, I'm still better than the illegitimate son of a 70-year-old man. The tall and thin man seemed to know Zhou Yaozu very well. Your father, Zhou Nanfeng, is a famous wealthy businessman in H City. He is 93 years old this year. On his 70th birthday, a chicken got his sperm and gave birth to you through artificial insemination. If your mother hadn't gone all out to find the media to speak up and you went to your father's house every day to cheat, your father wouldn't have known that he had a B*TCH son like you. Zhou Yaozu's mind buzzed and he blurted out, You. How did you know? He had just taken a plane and sat in the wrong seat. How did he get exposed? The people in first class looked at Zhou Yaozu with different expressions. Many of them curled their lips in disdain. Zhou Yaozu wished he could take a condom and put it on tightly. You're good. I won't lower myself to your level. Zhou Yaozu flew into a rage out of humiliation. He pushed the tall and thin man away with a flick of his arm and walked back to the back of first class near the toilet to sit down. He shrunk his neck and hid himself. Everyone watched the commotion for a while before looking away. Lu Yuan and Zhao Liangzi sat together and shook their heads with a laugh when they saw this scene. Zhao Liangzi chuckled and said, President Lu, isn't this brother of yours too amazing? Did he research the backgrounds of all the people in the first-class cabin? Lu Yuan smiled and turned his head away. He's a cautious person. Of course, he has to know himself and his enemy before he can fly at ease. Zhao Liangzi scratched his head in confusion and said sheepishly, The airport security is already strict enough. Mr. Lu, are you still worried? Lu Yuan smiled but didn't say anything. He picked up the business magazine on the plane and flipped through it casually. The tall, thin, and unassuming man sat down next to Gunyanji. Gunyanji had just been annoyed by the man with the oily hair and powdered face. Now that the man had not only been chased away, but had also been humiliated in public, she felt very happy. She leaned over to the man sitting next to her and said, Sir, may I know your name? Thank you so much for just now. The tall, thin man didn't seem to expect Gunyanji to take the initiative to speak to him. He was very nervous and straightened his back in his seat. He didn't look at her and only nodded casually. No need, my surname is Lu. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Gunyanji, this man didn't seem to like talking to her. Gunyanji didn't want to force him. She moved slightly to the side to distance herself from the man so that he wouldn't feel so awkward. After a while, the flight attendants on the plane came over and explained the general flying knowledge to everyone. They then said that they would be taking off soon and asked everyone to fasten their seatbelts. Gunyanji fastened her seatbelt with a click. From the corner of her eye, she saw that the man in the seat next to her seemed to be peeking at her. Her heart skipped a beat and she turned her head to look at him. The man was sitting upright and had no intention of looking at her at all. Was she being overly sensitive? Gunyanji shook her head, took out her headphones and put them on. She listened to her favorite audiobook, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This was the third book in the Harry Potter series and it was also her favorite. Every time she heard Sirius Black, Sirius, was imprisoned for more than 10 years because he was framed, he cried uncontrollably. She couldn't even hear the roar of the plane taking off. She was immersed in the ups and downs of the plot. When she heard the part she was most familiar with, she couldn't help but cry. Just as she was listening nervously, someone suddenly poked her arm gently. Gunyanji instinctively turned her head to see the man sitting next to her handing her a pack of delicate tissues. He looked at her with concern. Gunyanji came back to her senses and took off her headphones. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand in embarrassment and said, I was listening to the book and was moved, so... The man grunted and stubbornly handed the tissue to her. He said somewhat awkwardly, This is made from blueberry juice mixed with 100% Hawaiian sandalwood pulp. It's edible and has no added pigments. It doesn't cause any damage to the skin. Its water and oil absorption properties can reach 98%. It's the best ratio known for water and oil absorption. It can't be 100% absorbed. It's not good for the skin either. Gunyanji was embarrassed. Uncle, this is just a pack of tissue. It's the kind of thing that has to be thrown into the trash can after using it. Do you want to explain its production parameters and performance indicators? She was still in a daze when the man had already stuffed the tissue into her hand. His eyes sparkled as he looked at her as if saying, praise me, I'm amazing. Gunyanji held the tissue, her bright eyes crinkling. Her curvy lips curved into a happy smile as she politely said, thank you, this tissue is amazing. I wonder what brand it is? I'll buy it in the future. The man's eyes lit up even more. You really like it? But you haven't used it yet. How do you know it's as good as I say? Gunyanji was speechless. If it weren't for the fact that she could sense that the man had no ill intentions, Gunyanji really wanted to slap the tissue back in his face. How could this person speak like that? Every word was so sarcastic. Gunyanji looked at the man as she tore open the tissue, took out a piece and pressed it on her face. It did feel good. She carefully touched the tissue with her hand, feeling its unusual softness and toughness. She simply wiped her entire face with it. Seeing that there was a layer of dirt on it, she couldn't stop praising it. This tissue is really good. It can even be used as a facial towel. The man finally breathed a sigh of relief and asked very seriously, do you like to use it? I like it. Gunyanji flipped through the packaging of the tissue, but she couldn't see the brand or the production date. The man saw her flipping through it and knew what she was looking for. He said, I made this myself. I only use it for my family. It's not sold outside. Since it's not sold in the market, why are you showing it off? Uncle, are you really not messing with me? Gunyanji pursed her lips and forced a smile. She said fakely, if that's the case then it's even more precious. You can't buy it even if you have money. However, the man didn't seem to hear the ridicule in her words. Instead he said happily, it's okay. I'll let you use it. I don't need your money. Gunyanji was speechless. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. She was a little scared. She quietly moved to the side and put on the headphones. She said politely, how can I accept that? I'm not used to using tissues like this. Alright, I'm going to continue listening to my book. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you. She crossed her arms and closed her eyes, putting on a, I'm not the one look. The man looked at her in shock. After a while, he looked away resentfully and stared blankly at the back of the seat in front of him. He didn't speak again. He didn't say a word until he got off the plane. Lu Yuan sat on the other side of the aisle. He wanted to talk to him several times, but the man pursed his lips tightly and didn't speak at all. It wasn't until the plane landed in H City that the man suddenly stood up and was the first to rush to the cabin door. Gunyanji had just taken off her headphones when she looked up and saw it. She frowned slightly and didn't say anything. Lu Yuan sighed and stood up to say to her, Lawyer Gu, please don't take offense. That's my brother Lu Jin. He doesn't know how to talk, but he's a very good person. If he offended you in any way, I apologize on his behalf. Gunyanji was relieved when she heard that it was Lu Yuan's younger brother. She let out a big sigh of relief and said, Xiao Lu, why didn't you say so earlier? I was really embarrassed just now. It's fine. He's just like that. Lu Yuan smiled and helped her pick up her suitcase. Let's go down together. Gunyanji nodded. I'll go apologize to him first. I was too rude just now. Lu Yuan smiled as he watched her squeeze to the cabin door in front of him. Gunyanji saw Lu Yuan's brother, Lu Jin, standing in front of the cabin door like a thin bamboo pole. He had a don't get close look on his face as if he would jump up and hit anyone who approached him. She coughed softly behind his back and said, Mr. Lu Jin? Lu Jin, who was standing in front of her, trembled. He suddenly turned around and saw Gunyanji looking at him with a smile. She even waved her hand and said, Mr. Lu Jin? Lu Yuan, Lu Jin, the Lu family's parents were really willful in naming them. Gunyanji complained in her heart as she smiled sweetly. She said to the shocked Lu Jin, Mr. Lu Jin, I was too rude just now and made you angry. It was my fault. Please be magnanimous and forgive me this once. When we get off the plane, I'll treat you to a meal as an apology. Lu Jin looked very nervous, but he didn't want to keep a straight face. He knew that if he kept a straight face, the little girl would be afraid. So he tried his best to squeeze out a smile. A smile that was uglier than crying. He said, Okay, where are we going to eat after we get off the plane? Gunyanji was already mentally prepared. Although she was very surprised, she didn't show it on her face at all. She still smiled softly. I'll go wherever you say. This is my first time in H City, so I'm not familiar with it. However, I heard that you're President Lu's brother. This time, you must be here for the Lu Corporation celebration party, right? Lu Jin grunted. Seeing that Gu Nianji seemed to be very interested in the Lu Corporation, he quickly said, I'm also a shareholder of the Lu Corporation. Gu Nianji wasn't surprised. The Lu Corporation was a family business from the name. This man was Lu Yuan's younger brother, so he must have shares in the Lu Corporation. Oh, then you're my big boss. Please take care of me in the future. Gu Nianji bowed to Lu Jin. Lu Jin quickly reached out to help her up, but just as he was about to touch her shoulder, he quickly pulled back. He rubbed his back with his hands behind his back and his expression relaxed. I'll definitely take care of you. You don't have to bow. After saying that, he was worried that he had said the wrong thing. He looked at Gu Nianji eagerly and asked, You won't continue to be angry, will you? The corners of Gu Nianji's mouth twitched and she quickly shook her head. No. Then, do you still use the tissues I made? He was very persistent in promoting his tissues. Gu Nianji couldn't help laughing. She realized that although this man was old, he was still very simple. He was very straightforward. Therefore, she was very honest with him and didn't beat around the bush. Of course I want to use such a good thing, but I don't accept a reward without doing anything. You said that such a good thing is free for me, so I don't dare to use it. Lu Jin finally understood what she meant, and a big smile appeared on his face. I see. Then I'll go back and set a price based on cost plus profit, and then you'll know how to use it, right? Gu Nianji nodded heavily. I hope it's not too expensive, or I won't be able to afford it. It's not expensive as long as you're willing to use it. Lu Jin was finally happy. The corners of his mouth curled up high and he couldn't lower it anymore. After coming out of the airport, a bus took them to the Four Seasons in H City. Seasons Hotel, Four Seasons Hotel. The Four Seasons Hotel was one of the hotels in H City's Central International Financial Center. It was also the most mysterious hotel in H City. It was 45 stories tall and had a total of 399 rooms. Most of the rooms had a 180-degree view of the sea. This time, Gu Nianji, Jin Dezhuang and Xiao Zhang were together. After entering the Four Seasons Hotel and getting the room card, Gu Nianji followed the group upstairs to find a room. Her room was on the 36th floor, the same floor as Jin Dezhuang and Xiao Zhang. As soon as Xiao Zhang arrived, she excitedly changed into her swimsuit and went to the hotel's outdoor swimming pool to swim. Jin Dezhuang was old, so he needed to rest in his room. Their celebration party was tomorrow night, and most of them would be flying back to C City the morning after tomorrow. Gu Nianji also wanted to take the time to have a good look around H City. She had checked when she came and knew that the food here was very famous. She wanted to try it. Gu Nianji put down her luggage and went to the bathroom to take a shower. She changed into a summer sapphire blue silk dress with slightly fluffy lantern sleeves and a one-sided collar that revealed her exquisite collarbone. She also wore a string of millet beads as a necklace. A palm-sized silk belt of the same material was tied around her slender waist, and the flower bud-shaped dress was just right. Her skin was already very white, and it was even more dazzling with the contrast of the sapphire blue silk. She pushed open the door and walked out, just in time to see Lu Yuan's brother, Lu Jin, pacing around the door. Gu Nianji walked over with a smile and said, Mr. Lu Jin, do you live here? Lu Jin turned around and saw her, his eyes filled with amazement. He nodded, then shook his head and said, I'm here to look for you for dinner. Gu Nianji, you said on the plane that you wanted to treat me to dinner as an apology. He looked at Gu Nianji nervously as if he was afraid that she would go back on her word. Gu Nianji also wanted to go out to find something to eat, so she invited him along and said, Okay, I heard that the restaurant on the 4th floor, Long Jingshen, is pretty good. Do you want to try the food? Lu Jin nodded repeatedly and said, Okay, let's go to Long Jingshen first, then I'll treat you to Caprice on the 6th floor for French food. Gu Nianji, they had only had one meal and they were already booking the next one? Gu Nianji rolled her eyes and said with a smile, But I have to lose weight tonight. One meal is enough. I don't want to eat French food anymore. Okay then. Lu Jin quickly glanced at Gu Nianji and thought to himself, how was she fat? Why did she want to lose weight? However, he had seen many women who often shouted about losing weight, so he rationally didn't ask. He walked beside Gu Nianji happily and took the elevator with her to the Long Jingshen restaurant on the 4th floor. Gu Nianji didn't expect to see Bai Shuang when the elevator door opened. Bai Shuang looked like she had just gotten off the plane, but she had also dressed up. She was standing at the entrance of the Long Jingxian restaurant talking to a white man. The white man was thin and wore gold-rimmed glasses. He looked very elegant and refined. Gun Yanji smiled and stood quietly not far behind them. However, Bai Shuang saw Gun Yanji from the corner of her eye. She quickly turned her head and said, "Miss Gu? You live here too? Are you here for dinner?" Gun Yanji nodded and said, "We moved in with the Lu Corporation. The Lu Corporation is having a celebration party tomorrow." You're an employee of the Lu Corporation? That's a good job. Bai Shuang said enviously, "Unfortunately, I don't know anything about computers." "What do you do, Miss Gu?" Gun Yanji said, "I'm not an employee of the Lu Corporation. I'm an employee of their law firm. I'm a lawyer." Lawyer? Bai Shuang's eyes lit up and she quickly said, "So Miss Gu is a lawyer? The lawyer who works with the Lu Corporation must be very powerful. Coincidentally, my client said she wants to find a lawyer. Do you want to try?" Gun Yanji glanced at the person. "Is this your company's client?" This was today's chapter of 4,500 words, chapter 1511, The Road is Long, the Road is Short. Well, there were no updates today. The previous chapter was slightly revised. You can download it again and read it. P.S. Thank you to the leader of I Am Master Rashi for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Moi, everyone, little angels. Chapter 1523. Bai Shuang nodded repeatedly. He's Mr. Dresden. He just came from the United States and doesn't know Chinese. Our company accepted the commission and asked me to be his translator. As she spoke, she introduced Gun Yanji to Dresden in English. She also said that she was a lawyer from the famous Lu Corporation's partner law firm. If there was anything, she could be his agent. Gun Yanji smiled and quickly said, "Bai Shuang, don't put me on a pedestal. Lawyers have different specialties, so the cases they handle are also different. I don't know what kind of agent your client needs. If it's in a field I'm not familiar with, I can't take your case." Most people thought that as long as they were lawyers, they could take on any legal matter. But that wasn't the case. There were so many laws in the country. How could a lawyer be proficient in all aspects? Lawyers only specialized in one area. For example, criminal law lawyers dealt with criminal law. Those who specialized in economic law would deal with cases related to economic disputes. There were also those who were proficient in marriage law and labor law, such as Jin Dezhuang. Most of the cases he took were divorce cases and labor arbitration. He could take on other cases, but the quality of his work was much worse. Moreover, most lawyers charged by the hour. The more familiar they were with the field, the less time they needed to prepare. They could directly enter the processing stage and start charging. In unfamiliar fields, they would spend more time preparing, which was not conducive to their profit ratio. Of course, there were also some unscrupulous lawyers who used all their time to charge. This way the client would face a high bill. With such expensive fees, the quality of the work required was also high. However, in unfamiliar fields, it was difficult to do it satisfactorily the first time. Therefore the end result was a mess. This was a matter of ruining their reputation. Very few lawyers would do such a kill the goose that lays the golden eggs thing. Gun Yanji only had her own experience. She was talented in criminal law litigation, and her research was also in the field of criminal law. The cases she had fought were also in this field. In the other world, she wouldn't take on cases that weren't in the field of criminal law. However, after coming over here, she entered Jin Dazhuang's small law firm and began to follow up on marriage law and labor arbitration law. She was studying most of the legal provisions. From the looks of it, this American probably didn't need the Wuxia Empire's marriage law and labor arbitration law. As for criminal law, this person couldn't just come to H City and cause trouble, right? Gun Yanji didn't know if she could help him. Bai Shuang saw that Gun Yanji was evading, so she quickly said, "He said he wanted to find a lawyer, but he didn't specifically say who. I'm not familiar with the legal profession." "Anyway, you're a lawyer and an industry insider. Even if you can't do it, you can still recommend him a suitable lawyer, right?" Gun Yanji finally nodded and smiled. "No problem. If you need anything, you can call me or send me a message." She pointed to Bai Shuang's phone and blinked playfully. Bai Shuang hugged her happily. "That's great. Thank you, Lawyer Gu." Dresden watched silently from the side, his expression a little nervous. He pushed Bai Shuang and said in English, "Are you? You done? I'm starving." "Are you finished?" "I'm starving." Bai Shuang let go of Gun Yanji and waved at her. "We're going to eat. Keep in touch." Gun Yanji waited for them to go in before asking Lu Jin, who was standing next to her, "Mr. Lu, do you mind going in for dinner?" Lu Jin quickly said, "I'm fine with it, but if you don't want to go, we can go somewhere else." Gun Yanji had just gotten off the plane, so she was actually a little tired. She just wanted to eat something and go back to sleep, so she couldn't be bothered to find another place. "As long as Mr. Lu doesn't mind. I heard the seafood here is pretty good," Gun Yanji said as she and Lu Jin entered the entrance of Long Jingxian. It wasn't even lunchtime yet, but there were an unusually large number of people here for lunch. There was a circle of people sitting in the lounge area at the front desk, waiting to go in. However, Bai Shuang and the American said a few words to the lady at the front desk and were quickly let in. Maybe they had an appointment? Gun Yanji didn't mind. After the people in front of her were sent to the lounge area to wait, she walked up to the front desk and said to the lady there, "Hello, do you have any seats for lunch?" She spoke in authentic Mandarin, and her pronunciation was perfect. It was obvious that she was from the north. The lady at the front desk lowered her head and typed away on her computer. She said coldly in the H-City dialect, "Sister Bei, what are you talking about?" Gun Yanji, she didn't know much about the H-City dialect, but she could roughly tell from her tone that her attitude wasn't very respectful. Gun Yanji's drowsiness was chased away by her, and she immediately became energetic. She thought that if she spoke English, the restaurant's front desk lady might be more enthusiastic, because Bai Shuang and the American had received an unusual reception from this front desk lady. Was the restaurant bullying the customers because she spoke Northern Mandarin? She then glanced at the diners waiting in the lounge area. Almost all of them were Wuxia people, and from the looks of it, they were all tourists from other places. As for the white men who came in behind them, they were quickly let in. Gun Yanji didn't believe that these people had all made reservations. She instantly realized that she had been discriminated against by her own people in Wuxia. She was really a snob. If Gun Yanji tolerated it, she wouldn't be Gun Yanji. Just as she was about to lose her temper, Lu Jin, who was standing next to her, pulled her over and stepped forward to block her. He said rudely to the front desk lady, "Hurry up and take us in to eat, or I'll file a complaint against you immediately. Don't pretend that you don't understand Northern Mandarin. When I came here, I investigated your restaurant. You've been promoting Northern Mandarin learning for 3 years. If you don't understand Northern Mandarin, you can't work." He was still speaking in perfect Northern Chinese. The front desk lady's heart trembled. She looked up in surprise and saw an unprepossessing middle-aged man standing in front of her. He frowned and had an impatient expression on his face. He gently tapped on the front desk with one hand, revealing the Vacheron Constantin watch on his wrist. The front desk lady didn't dare to pretend that she didn't understand him anymore. Her already small eyes narrowed into slits, and she said enthusiastically in broken Northern Mandarin, "How many seats do you want, Mr. Sen?" "2 by the window. We need to have a view of the sea." Lu Jin was very impolite. "We're hungry. We'll serve the food right away." Okay, Marcin will be here soon." She quickly found a waiter to come over. "Johnson, take the 2 of them to table A over there by the window." The waiter had a good temper. He smiled and bowed to them. "Please follow me." His Northern Mandarin was much more authentic. At least it was better than the front desk ladies. Gun Yanji saw that Lu Jin was so impressive, so she didn't stand up for him. She smiled and sat down by the window with him. The sea view outside the window was overwhelming. The blue sea and sky were endless, and a few seagulls were flying gracefully on the sea. From time to time, cruise ships would play on the sea, creating snow-white waves. There were also large cruise ships and cargo ships entering the port. They were majestic with their sails. Gun Yanji took a deep breath and rested her chin on her hands on the small dining table in front of her. She looked out of the window and said, "It's so beautiful." Lu Jin was very happy to see that she liked this place. He said, "I can book this place. You can come and eat whenever you want." He added, "Don't be angry. We'll complain if we have to." Who asked her to look down on us? He was about to call the manager. Gun Yanji quickly said, "No need, don't book it. I'll go back the day after tomorrow. Besides, you taught her a lesson just now. She's just a receptionist. It's not easy for her to make a living." Lu Jin was stunned. He looked at her silently for a while before nodding and asking seriously, "Miss Gu, she called you Sister Bei. You're willing to make peace with such a discriminatory and humiliating title. Are you often bullied?" Although Gun Yanji wasn't often bullied, and even if someone bullied her, she would fight back immediately, her eyes instantly turned red because of his unexpected words of concern. She couldn't cry. She couldn't cry in front of strangers. Gunyanji held back her tears and tried her best to widen her eyes so that the sourness wouldn't turn into tears. Lu Jin saw that she was trying her best to suppress her emotions, and his mind exploded. It was as if a flood had broken through a dam, and thousands of torrents poured out. He couldn't help clenching his chopsticks tightly, and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. "Someone really bullied you?" He couldn't help shouting. The veins on his neck were bulging, and his eyes were bloodshot like a bloodthirsty beast. His voice was so loud that half of the people in the dining room looked over curiously. Gunyanji couldn't care less about her sadness. She quickly tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "No, no one bullied me. No one bullied you. Why do you look like you're about to cry?" Lu Jin also realized that his voice was too loud. He glared around with a fierce expression as if he was saying, "If you dare look at me again, I'll glare you to death." His gaze was too horrifying, and his ruthlessness made people tremble with fear. The people around them quickly looked away and didn't dare to look at them again. Gunyanji was speechless. This Mr. Lu was the complete opposite of his brother, President Lu Yuan's smooth and flawless style of doing things. On the plane, someone else had only taken up his seat, and he could reveal their secrets. In the dining room, her eyes had only turned red for a moment, and he wanted to glare at the people around him. This kind of ability to attract hatred tsk in front of him, no matter how annoying someone was, they would probably be made into little angels, Gunyanji complained, but she had no intention of blaming Lu Jin. On the contrary, her heart warmed up. This was because Gunyanji had indirectly benefited from this person's outburst twice. She was very grateful for this, and her impression of this person became better. She had never felt this kind of feeling before, whether it was by Hua Xiaoheng's side or He Jichu's side. She had this kind of personality. If someone treated her well, she would want to repay them with a gushing spring. The hatred that Lu Jin had attracted in front of others instantly narrowed the distance between him and Gunyanji. Gunyanji thought about it and smiled. "I'm quite touched. We've never met before, but you care so much about me. Besides, I've always been a crybaby." She took out the pack of tissues that Lu Jin had given her on the plane and wiped her face with one. Lu Jin saw that she was carrying the tissues he had given her with her, and his depressed mood suddenly brightened up. He quietly watched her wipe her face, then lowered his voice and said, "Even if no one bullies you, does that mean no one cares about you?" "Gunyanji, uncle, isn't your imagination a little too strong?" Gunyanji put down the tissues and crossed her arms on the dining table. She leaned forward slightly and asked in confusion, "How did you know that?" Lu Jin pointed out logically, "You were actually moved to tears because of a word of concern from me. If it weren't for the fact that very few people care about you, how could you be so moved because of a word of concern from someone else?" Gunyanji glared at Lu Jin and was so choked that she couldn't say a word. This was the first time she had met someone who was on par with her, someone who could reason logically while being unreasonable. She had been the only one who could do this in the past. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1512, Meeting the Enemy. At 8 p.m. there were 3,000 monthly votes and updates. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. Today was Monday, especially the recommendation votes. P.S. Thank you to the Ring of 8 Rings for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Moi, everyone, little angels. Chapter 1524. Why aren't you saying anything? Did I guess right? Lu Jin was even more nervous. His tone was slightly impatient and angry. It seemed that as long as Gunyanji nodded, he would tear those who didn't care about her into pieces. Gunyanji felt a little uncomfortable. This kind of unadulterated concern made her feel warm and comforted, but it was a little strange for such strong concern to come from a stranger she had just met. When she was growing up, Hua Xiaoheng always reminded her that there was no such thing as a free lunch, and there was no such thing as a free lunch. She had to work hard to get what she wanted. What was given to her for free was either poison wrapped in honey or a trap thrown out as bait. Her heart was churning with the rules that Hua Xiaoheng had set for her, but she didn't show it on her face. She smiled and shook her head. "Of course not. I'm just more easily moved." Lu Jin looked at her silently with a stubborn expression that said, "Keep making up stories. If I believe you, I lose." Gunyanji had a headache. How was she going to convince this person? After thinking about it, she said softly, "Mr. Lu, there are actually a lot of people who care about me. It's true. They treat me very well. I can basically get whatever I want, as long as she paid the same price." Of course, she didn't say the second half of the sentence. Lu Jin looked at her suspiciously. Really? But I feel like you're hesitating and reluctant. It seems like you're hiding something. Gu Nianji couldn't help pursing her lips. She was very worried that she would accidentally say what she was keeping in her heart. This person was too sharp. Although his words weren't pleasant to the ear, his observation skills were top-notch. Gu Nianji was annoyed and her eyes darted around. She looked up and saw the waiter coming over with the menu. She quickly said, "Oh, I'm starving. Let's see what's good here." When Gu Nianji said she was hungry, Lu Jin's thoughts immediately went astray. He quickly said, "Then hurry up and order. Don't you want to eat seafood? Let's see what seafood specialties they have here." Long Jingxian was the only Michelin 3-star Wuxia restaurant in H City. It did have its own delicious specialties. Before they ordered, the waiter brought the appetizers. They were free and available at every table. Gu Nianji looked at it and licked her lips. It was indeed a high-class restaurant. The appetizer was pickled cucumber and abalone. A delicious abalone was placed on top of a few slices of tender cucumber. Just the color scheme alone was enough to whet one's appetite. Gu Nianji took a bite of the abalone, then didn't hesitate to order the abalone and chicken crisp platter, dragon with jade pear fragrance, crispy fried lobster balls, French duck liver stuffed crab, and celery mixed green melon dumplings. The main dish was Long Jingshuan's signature lobster fried rice, and the dessert was poplar sweet dew. After ordering, she looked at Lu Jin embarrassedly and said, "Did I order too much?" Lu Jin shook his head seriously and said, "I've calculated the amount of food here. The food you ordered is only enough for you to eat until you're half full." Gu Nianji raised her eyebrows. "You've eaten here before?" "No." Lu Jin shook his head honestly. "I calculated it from their menu and the calories of every dish on their menu." Gu Nianji, the waiter's eyes were almost popping out of his head. He had worked here for so many years, but this was probably the first time he had seen someone calculate the amount of food from the calories of every dish on their menu. "Then should I order more?" Gu Nianji looked at the price of each dish and her heart thumped. She hoped that she had brought enough money for a meal. It was too expensive. Lu Jin flipped through the menu and quickly ordered 6 gold foil seafood dumplings. The menu says that there's fish maw, ginseng, and mushrooms from Japan. The nuclear leak in Japan has been quite serious in the past 2 years. Food raw materials from there can't be served on our table. If I measure it, I'll sue your restaurant for treating human life like grass. The waiter's legs began to go weak and he wanted to kneel down. Gu Nianji listened with relish and nodded repeatedly. "That's true. We don't need mushrooms from Japan. The mushrooms from Yungue in our country are very good." Then she reminded the waiter, "Remember, if you don't explain it to the chef, we won't comply." The waiter nodded repeatedly. I'll remember. All food raw materials from Japan couldn't be used in the dishes ordered by this table of customers. Lu Jin continued to order 2 organic Australian black and white lobster balls with scallions, 3 baskets of scallop dumplings, and an appetizer platter with barbecued pork, roast duck, roast suckling pig and jellyfish skin. He explained to Gu Nianji, "This platter isn't actually healthy. The fat content is too high, but because the amount is very small, I'll still order one for you to try. The roast suckling pig here is unique, so it's worth trying." Gu Nianji's saliva was about to drip out, and her eyes shone with the light of a glutton who had seen delicious food. Okay. I like to try delicacies from all over the world." Lu Jin looked at the menu again and said, 4 servings of lobster fried rice and 2 servings of each of the dishes she ordered before. "That's enough." Gu Nianji silently calculated the bill. This meal would cost about 5,000 yuan, and she would spend almost a month's salary. Just as she was wondering if she still had the money to go shopping and buy some local specialties, Lu Jin had already handed the menu back to the waiter and said, "This meal will be signed under the name of the Lu Corporation." The waiter's eyes lit up and he quickly said, "May I ask if you're a senior executive of the Lu Corporation?" Those who had the authority to sign the bill were all senior executives. Lu Jin took out his business card. "I have the authority to sign." Gu Nianji blushed and quickly said, "This meal is on me. Don't be like this, it's not good if others find out." This was eating and drinking at public expense. If Hua Xiaoheng found out, he would probably break her legs. The waiter ignored Gu Nianji and left happily with Lu Jin's business card. Lu Jin frowned and looked at Gu Nianji. "What's wrong with that? As a shareholder of the Lu Corporation, can't I even sign the bill?" Gu Nianji began to reason. "Mr. Lu, don't be like this. We agreed that I would treat, so I ordered these dishes. If you were the one treating, I wouldn't have ordered them. Besides, we already agreed. What do you mean by going back on your word? Actually, if Lu Jin had taken the initiative to treat her to a meal, she definitely wouldn't have come. Lu Jin felt that it made sense and said regretfully, then this meal is on you and the next meal is on me. Gun Yinji, she decided not to dwell on this issue. She could manage this meal for 3 days. Whether it was her appetite or her wallet. Gun Yinji smiled at Lu Jin and didn't say anything else. The two of them made up their minds and began to enjoy the food quietly. The waiter brought the dishes over one after another. It was only then that Gun Yinji realized that the so-called dragon with jade pear fragrance was actually a combination of shrimp and pear. The shrimp meat was delicious and the pear meat was sweet and delicious. It was wrapped in a little powder and steamed together. Both foods retained their natural taste, and when mixed together the aftertaste was endless. She ate the delicious food in small bites and sat upright. When she ate, she chewed carefully without showing her teeth, and of course she didn't smack her lips. Her demeanor was dignified and elegant. One look at the way she ate was enough to tell that she had a good upbringing and must have come from a good family. It was also said that in a rich family, only after 3 generations did they know how to eat and dress. The way Gun Yinji ate was enough to convince people that she was a lady from a wealthy family. At that moment, no one thought that she was an orphan whose parents had died. Lu Jin didn't know the taste of his own food, and his attention was all on Gun Yinji. He saw the way she ate and nodded repeatedly in his heart. He finally believed what Gun Yinji had said. There should still be someone who cared about her. Because the kind of life you lived, the kind of person you would grow up to be. No matter how hard people tried to hide it, they couldn't hide the vicissitudes in their eyes and the nervousness in their posture. They wished they could transform into swords of revenge at all times, and their entire bodies were tense. Gun Yinji's neither servile nor overbearing posture, her elegant demeanor, especially her clear and moving eyes, and her witty and playful manner of speaking, were enough to convince people that she was indeed living a good life. Lu Jin watched her eat. The more he watched, the happier he became. It was as if he had drunk a bottle of 1982 Moutai. He was drunk. The two of them didn't speak much. They ate most of the dishes in one go before looking at each other and smiling. They began to chat. Gun Yinji raised the mango juice in her hand and smiled at Lu Jin. The portions of these dishes are indeed too small. I can finish a plate in 2 bites. She pointed at the abalone chicken crisp in front of her. On the huge plate there were 3 abalone chicken crisp. Gun Yinji finished all the abalone chicken crisp in a few bites. Needless to say, the abalone was delicious. The crispy skin on the outside was even more crisp and tender, and the filling inside was only fresh and not fishy. She wanted to swallow her tongue. After eating 3, Gun Yinji looked at Lu Jin with a lingering desire. Lu Jin actually understood the look in her eyes. He shook his head and said, "You can't order any more of this. Although it's delicious, it's very high in calories, cholesterol and purines. It's not good for your health if you eat too much." Gun Yinji licked her lips and nodded obediently. "Okay, then I won't eat any more. I'll try this dessert." The fragrant poplar branch mango was considered Long Jingshuan's signature dessert. Gun Yinji took a bite and didn't like the overly sweet taste. Lu Jin saw that she didn't eat much, so he didn't rush her. He nodded. "You should also eat less desserts. Eat more organic fruits. They're no worse than this dessert." During the meal, Gun Yinji was taught a lot about food safety and health by Lu Jin. Not only was she satisfied with the material, food, but she was also satisfied with the spiritual, knowledge. The meal lasted until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Gun Yinji couldn't take it anymore. She handed her card to the waiter to settle the bill and agreed not to put it on the Lu Corporation's account. The waiter reluctantly agreed and took her card in exchange for Lu Jin's business card. Gun Yinji didn't look at the bill and stuffed it into her wallet. She was worried that she would vomit blood if she saw it. She still had a smile on her face as she said to Lu Jin, "Mr. Lu, I really can't eat any more tonight. If there's a chance in the future, shall we choose another restaurant to have a good meal?" Lu Jin saw that she had indeed eaten a lot, so he wasn't in a hurry. He said, "Okay, don't lie down and sleep right away when you go back. You can walk for 5 more minutes before you rest." He nagged at her about what she should pay attention to after the meal. Gun Yinji didn't mind his nagging and listened very carefully. She walked all the way back to her room and opened the door with her key card before saying to him, "Thank you, Mr. Lu. I had a good time today." It had been a long time since Lu Jin had spoken so much in one breath. It was rare for an obedient person to not only not hate him, but also listen very seriously and not perfunctorily. He was so happy that he was almost humming all the way back to his room. Lu Yuan and Zhao Liangzi were discussing important matters in the inner room. When they heard Lu Jin come in, they fell silent at the same time. After a while, Zhao Liangzi was puzzled. "Xiao Lu, your brother can sing?" Lu Yuan. The next night was the Lu Corporation's grand celebration banquet. Gu Nianji changed into a formal black dress and only wore a necklace of natural seawater wild pearls. The pearls were full and each one was the size of a pinky finger. What was rare was that each one was almost exactly the same size. The pearls were shiny and complemented her delicate and fair skin. Walking into the beautifully decorated banquet hall, Gu Nianji found Xiao Zhang, who was eating the buffet with a plate. She smiled and said, "Aren't you a celebrity chaser? Where are those celebrities?" Xiao Zhang had gone out shopping during the day and hadn't eaten all day. She was waiting for the celebration banquet buffet to fill her stomach. Although it was important to chase after celebrities, it was more important to fill her stomach. Xiao Zhang chewed on the fragrant lobster fried rice and said incoherently, "I think they're over there. I saw a few celebrities surrounding Miss Ye just now." Gu Nianji asked nervously, "Miss Ye? Which Miss Ye?" "It's Prime Minister Xie's niece, Xie Qingying." Xiao Zhang looked around and found traces of Xie Qingying. He pointed and said, "There, she's over there." This was today's second monthly ticket for 3,000 plus updates. Chapter 1513, It's nice to have someone obedient. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. Today was Monday, especially the recommendation tickets. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1525. Under the bright crystal lights in the celebration banquet hall, Prime Minister Xie Beichen's niece, Xie Qingying, was wearing a sapphire blue fishtail evening gown that revealed one of her fair shoulders. She wore an Indian-style ruby necklace around her neck. Her eyes were also relatively large, and she had put on heavier eye makeup, making her eyes look even bigger. She looked a little like a white Indian Brahmin caste beauty. She held a glass of red wine in her hand and was talking to a group of handsome men and beautiful women around her. Gu Nianji looked at the little black dress she was wearing and felt that she was a little disrespectful. If she wanted to find a chance to talk to Xie Qingying among the group of upper-class men and women dressed in pearls and jade, her outfit was really not good enough. But it was too late to go back and change now. Moreover, she hadn't wanted to be in the limelight before, so she hadn't brought any branded custom-made evening gowns. What should she do? She held a glass of orange juice and pretended to be nonchalant as she walked over to Xie Qingying. She only wanted to find an opportunity for her to talk to Xie Qingying. Standing about 3 meters away from Xie Qingying, Gu Nianji saw that the people around her seemed to be about to disperse, so she quickly walked forward. However, she had only taken a few steps when a group of people rushed up from behind and squeezed her to the back. "Hey, what are you doing? In a hurry to reincarnate?" Gu Nianji staggered from being pushed by a young man and almost fell to the ground. The man turned around to look at her. He saw that she was dressed plainly and didn't wear expensive jewelry. Although her figure was hot and her face was delicate, she wasn't qualified to listen to his apology. He glared at her and had already squeezed to Xie Qingying's side. He gave her a generous and decent smile and behaved courteously, as if the rude man who had randomly bumped into others to squeeze to the front didn't exist at all. The corners of Gu Nianji's mouth twitched. She picked up her phone and took a picture of the man. A gentleman's revenge was a dish best served cold. She was the vengeful Gu Nianji. After waiting for a while, the group of people dispersed, and Gu Nianji quickly walked over to Xie Qingying. Unexpectedly, she had only taken a few steps when another group of people surrounded her from behind and overtook her. This time, it was a young woman in a custom-made Dior evening gown who squeezed her out. Not only did he reach out and pull her away, but he also seemed to have stepped on her. Gu Nianji had never experienced something like this before. When she was with Hu Xiaoheng, she had never attended such events. She had attended such banquets with He Zhichu in the United States before, but with He Zhichu by their side, it was always others who came over to fawn over them. She didn't have to approach them like she was doing now. Gu Nianji couldn't be bothered to take another picture of the woman who had stepped on her foot. There were too many of them. Could she even pick them all? Although Gu Nianji was tall and beautiful, she didn't have the right to speak to Xie Qingying in the eyes of these snobs, who only respected clothes and not people. She could only wander around with a glass of orange juice in her hand, waiting for a chance to jump over. Lu Jin and Lu Yuan stood in a VIP room on the second floor, waiting for the celebration banquet to officially begin. Through the large glass window of the VIP room on the second floor, one could see everything that was going on in the hall on the first floor. Ever since Lu Jin entered, his gaze hadn't left Gu Nianji, who was wearing a black evening gown in the hall on the first floor. He observed her for nearly 10 minutes and asked Lu Yuan in confusion, "Why do you think Nianji kept circling around Xie Qingying within a 2-meter radius?" Lu Yuan, actually, he didn't want to answer this kind of daily math question. However, Lu Jin looked at him eagerly, obviously hoping that he could answer this question. Lu Yuan had no choice but to droop his eyelids and say, "Isn't it obvious?" She wanted to talk to Xie Qingying, but she couldn't squeeze in, so she had to circle around outside. Lu Jin immediately put down the red wine glass in his hand and tugged at the bow tie around his neck. His expression was ugly. Why didn't Xie Qingying talk to her? Nianji was the most beautiful and polite girl among all the guests today. She didn't talk to her, but she insisted on chatting and laughing with those idiots. Why did you invite such a brainless socialite? Lu Yuan, how was Xie Qingying brainless? She graduated from Q University's School of Journalism and Communication, and from Columbia University's Masters in Media. After returning to China, she founded a new media company. Not only did she have a good family background, but she was also very capable. Lu Yuan had interacted with Xie Qingying a few times and knew that she wasn't shallow, and she had a good personality and temper. She was 100 times better at dealing with people than this man who always looked down on other people's IQs. Of course, Lu Yuan knew that in Lu Jin's opinion, anyone who didn't talk to Gu Nianji today was a brainless idiot and wouldn't accept a retort. When he saw Gu Nianji being pushed aside for the third time, Lu Jin couldn't take it anymore. "Go down and let Xie Qingying talk to Nianji." Lu Jin pushed Lu Yuan impatiently. "Why don't I go down myself? Are you afraid?" Lu Yuan glared at him. "Are you threatening me?" "Yes, I'm threatening you." Lu Jin's expression was matter of fact. "If you don't go down, I'll go down and talk nonsense. Don't blame me if I offend someone. You know you can't speak?" Lu Yuan couldn't help mocking him. "But you still know your limits." Lu Yuan also couldn't stand Gu Nianji's pitiful appearance as she was squeezed out of the crowd again and again. He looked at the hall on the first floor and muttered, "Why is Nianji's combat ability so weak? What are you talking about?" Lu Jin pricked up his ears and said unhappily, "Nianji is polite and well-educated. She's not like those uncultured boors." As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Nianji suddenly exerted force. She quietly stretched out her leg and tripped a young man who was trying to drag her behind. Then she quickly hid in the crowd as if nothing had happened and continued to squeeze towards Xie Qingying. Lu Yuan looked at Lu Jin. "Polite? Well-educated? How is she like those uncultured boors?" Lu Jin grabbed the back of the chair with both hands and stared blankly for a while. Then he beamed. Fortunately. Look at how agile she is. She's also very smart. She quietly slipped into the crowd and no one saw her." You and I both saw it." Lu Yuan glared at Lu Jin. "You're so biased that you can't even look at her." As he spoke, he quickly opened the door and left. He had a premonition. If he didn't go down and help, he didn't know what new tricks Lu Jin and Gu Nianji would come up with. Lu Yuan was the president and chairman of the Lu Corporation. The moment he appeared, many people's eyes lit up, and they couldn't wait to surround him. However, Lu Yuan also had bodyguards by his side and he wasn't alone. In the bustling hall on the first floor, the crowd parted to make a path. They watched as Lu Yuan walked past them with a smile. Finally, he came to the side of a beautiful girl in a black dress. "Lawyer Gu." Lu Yuan reached out his hand. "I'm very happy that you came to this celebration party today." "Gu Nianji?" What was going on? However, she glanced over and saw that Xie Qingying had already looked over. Her mind raced and she subconsciously reached out and held Lu Yuan's hand. She smiled and said, "President Lu, you're too kind." Lu Yuan smiled and leaned over. He whispered into her ear, "Someone saw that you wanted to talk to Miss Xie, so they sent me down to attract your attention." Gu Nianji giggled. "President Lu, you're so funny. How did they know that she wanted to talk to Xie Qingying? Was it that obvious?" Lu Yuan's familiarity with Gu Nianji made Gu Nianji the most eye-catching guest in the hall. The group of people who had surrounded Xie Qingying just now seemed to be moving towards Gu Nianji again. Gu Nianji didn't want to be surrounded by this group of people, so she quickly whispered to Lu Yuan, "President Lu, can you introduce me to Miss Xie?" Lu Yuan took a glass of grape juice from the waiter's tray and handed it to her. He smiled and said, "She'll come over herself." Gu Nianji, She silently put down the orange juice in her hand and took the grape juice from Lu Yuan. She looked up again and saw that Xie Qingying had indeed walked over. She reached out her hand to Lu Yuan. "Uncle Lu, long time no see. Qingying, you're getting more and more beautiful." Lu Yuan patted her on the shoulder like an elder, then turned around and said naturally, "This is Lawyer Gu, a partner of our group's law firm. She's very young, not even 20 years old." Lawyer Gu is so amazing. Xie Qingying looked up and saw Gu Nianji. Her heart skipped a beat. She reached out and said, "Lawyer Gu looks so familiar. Have I seen you before?" Gu Nianji held her hand and thought to herself that she had seen her in the other world. But this wasn't the reason why Xie Qingying felt that she looked familiar when she saw her. Because this Xie Qingying wasn't the Xie Qingying from the other world, and she had never seen her before. But why did she say that she looked familiar? Could it be that she was trying to get close to her? Lu Yuan looked at Xie Qingying, then at Gu Nianji. He said meaningfully, "Haven't you two looked in the mirror?" "What's wrong?" Gu Nianji and Xie Qingying asked in unison. "I was just saying." Lu Yuan didn't say it out loud. He held the arms of the two girls. "You guys have a good chat. I still have something to do. See you later." As the CEO of tonight's celebration banquet, Lu Yuan was already giving them a lot of face by taking out a few minutes. Gu Nianji and Xie Qingying nodded at him and watched him leave. After Lu Yuan left, Xie Qingying looked at Gu Nianji and realized that her nose looked very similar to hers. They were both straight and tall, and their nostrils were small and exquisite. It was as if they had been measured with a ruler. Both of them had long eyelashes and big eyes. Their eyebrows were curved and their faces were delicate. Gu Nianji's eyes were even bigger. They did look a little similar. Gu Nianji didn't have time to look at Xie Qingying. She smiled and exchanged a few pleasantries. She suddenly asked, "Miss Xie, may I ask if your mother's name is Gu Tian?" Xie Qingying was stunned for a moment and nodded. "Yes, you know my mother?" Gu Nianji was both nervous and excited. She then said, "Then do you have an uncle named Gu Xiangwen?" Xie Qingying frowned, and her expression gradually became extremely cold. She lowered her head and took a sip of red wine. She said expressionlessly, "Yes, but he's already dead." She looked like she didn't want to continue. "Miss Gu, I still have something to do." Xie Qingying obviously didn't want to talk about this person. She turned to leave. Gu Nianji's eyes darkened. She immediately understood what Xie Qingying meant. Was it because her father, Gu Xiangwen, was once a wanted criminal related to a murder case? So she didn't want to talk about this person at all? Seeing that another group of people had gathered around Xie Qingying, Gu Nianji ran a few steps to catch up. She asked nervously, "Miss Xie, does the Xie family have a great-aunt named Xie Xian? Do you know where she is now?" "Xie Xian?" Xie Qingying stopped in her tracks. She quickly turned around to look at Gu Nianji. She asked suspiciously, "How do you know my great-aunt's name? Tell me, where is she now? I have a friend who wants to look for her." Gu Nianji stared at Xie Qingying anxiously. Her hands began to tremble. Xie Qingying's heart softened when she saw how anxious she was. She gently shook her hand. "Miss Gu, I don't know why your friend wants to look for my great-aunt, but she went to the Soviet Union a long time ago and lost contact with her family. It's been a few decades now." "She went to the Soviet Union?" Gu Nianji frowned. "Then is she alive or?" "That's hard to say." Xie Qingying sighed slightly. "As a family, of course we hope she's still alive, but she went through that war. Basically, the chances of her being alive are not high." Gu Nianji carefully analyzed Xie Qingying's words and muttered, "You mean you don't know if she's alive or dead? If she's alive, why hasn't she contacted her family for all these years?" Xie Qingying asked in return. "A few years ago, our family sent people to the Soviet Union to investigate her whereabouts, but we couldn't find any definite answers." This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1514, Too Biased to See. There would be an extra update at 8 p.m. Yes, it was time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly and recommendation tickets over. Moi, everyone, little angels. Chapter 1526. You specifically sent people to the Soviet Union? Gu Nianji's brows furrowed as she looked thoughtfully at the hall in front of her. How did you find them? Xie Qingying felt that she was going too far. She glanced at Gu Nianji and didn't answer her directly. Instead she asked, "How old is your friend? Why are you so interested in my great-aunt?" Gu Nianji put down the grape juice in her hand. Her emotions were very complicated, but she also felt a little uneasy. If Xie was really dead, she wouldn't have to worry so much. What if she didn't die? If she got married and had children in the Soviet Union? Her eyelids involuntarily twitched twice. Although she knew that she shouldn't ask so many questions during their first meeting, she still couldn't control herself and confirmed again, "Have you looked for the KGB of the Soviet Union? If you want to find someone, the KGB of the Soviet Union is the real expert." Xie Qingying was silent for a long time. She swirled the red wine glass in her hand and said casually, "Of course not. Ask the KGB to help you find someone? You think they're our police department? Do you think they'll do it just because of a random request?" That was true. Gun Yinji looked away in surprise. In the other world, she was very familiar with the second-in-command of the Russian KGB, Vladimir, and his driver, Uncle Ivan, so she didn't think it was a big deal to ask the KGB for help. Now that she thought about it, she had actually benefited from Huo Xiaoheng. The KGB was able to have a good relationship with her because of Huo Xiaoheng. Otherwise, how could they recognize her? Just like Xie Qingying, who was the niece of the prime minister, she couldn't even get close to the KGB. Gun Yinji sighed softly and nodded. "I understand. I hope your great-aunt..." She suddenly stopped talking. What did she hope for? Hoping she was dead? Died before she could marry and have children? She really couldn't say it. After all, it was a human life, and it was Xie Qingying's grand-aunt. How shameless would she have to be to say such cruel words in front of others that she wished her great-aunt was dead? But could she hope that she was still alive? Didn't that mean there was another Huo Xiaoheng here? If that was the case, then Huo Xiaoheng would never be able to come over. Then she could only find her own way back. Gun Yinji's mood quickly sank. Seeing that she was silent, Xie Qingying raised her glass and smiled at her, saying, "Miss Gu, I still have something to do. It's nice to meet you today." Gun Yinji smiled at her. "Miss Xie is approachable and has the demeanor of a socialite. You flatter me, Miss Gu." Xie Qingying nodded politely and was led to the podium by her assistant. On the rostrum in front, the executives of the Lu Corporation had already gone on stage one after another to prepare to speak. The president and chairman of the Lu Corporation, Lu Yuan, was naturally the first to bear the brunt and stood at the front. He was tall and stalwart. Standing there in a suit, he exuded a majestic aura. He was not angry, but he was dignified. This was the unique bearing of someone who had been in a decision-making position for many years. Gun Yinji narrowed her eyes and looked at the rostrum. She keenly noticed that Lu Yuan's brother, Lu Jin, was standing diagonally behind him and looking at her with bright eyes. Seeing that Gun Yinji was looking over, Lu Jin quietly waved at her. Gun Yinji couldn't help smiling. This Mr. Lu Jin was really interesting. The hall quietened down and Lu Yuan began to speak. The excellent loudspeaker equipment transmitted his voice to all parts of the hall, as intimate and pleasant as if he was speaking in your ear. After he finished speaking, the partners of the Lu Corporation, the senior officials of H City, and the senators also began to speak. Gun Yinji was not in the mood to listen to their business praises. She quietly sized up the crowd around her, then quietly moved back and quietly walked towards the entrance of the hall. Finally, she left the banquet hall while everyone was applauding enthusiastically. Outside the hall was a wide balcony, and she could see Victoria Harbor in front of her. The sea view at night was exceptionally moving. A bright moon hung above the dark blue sky. In the clear water of Victoria Bay, there was also a bright moon shining. She stood alone on the balcony. Behind her was the bustling hall. The crowd cheered and applauded excitedly. In front of her was the endless sea. It was a vast expanse of jade and the waves were calm. Her thin back looked fragile, but it was extremely resilient. It was like a bamboo pole. The greater the pressure, the stronger the resistance. She calmly calculated the chips in her hands and planned her future actions. She didn't want to be trapped here for the rest of her life, but she had to carefully plan how to go back. Because she wasn't facing an ordinary person, but the entire state apparatus. She didn't know how long she had been standing there. A gust of sea breeze blew in her face and Gun Yinji felt a little cold. At this moment, a warm coat was gently draped over her back. Gun Yinji's body trembled. She looked up and saw that Lu Jin had just draped his suit jacket over her. "Mr. Lu, why did you come out?" Gun Yinji turned to look at the banquet hall. The liveliness there had reached a new height. Lu Jin put his hands in his trouser pockets and looked at the bay in front of him. He frowned and said, "I can't listen to a bunch of idiots flatter each other for more than 5 minutes a day. Too long will make me depressed and not be good for my mental health." Gun Yinji covered her mouth and laughed. "Mr. Lu, you're really rude. I wonder how many people you'll offend by saying that. I know, so I won't stay in there and offend anyone. Lu Jin glanced at her and saw that the smile on her face was like the epiphyllum in the dark night. It was breathtakingly beautiful and carefree. The depression and irritation he had felt earlier were instantly swept away. Gu Nianji took off Lu Jin's suit jacket and returned it to him. She deliberately said seriously, "Thank you for your suit, Mr. Lu. In order not to make Mr. Lu depressed, I have to go back first." Lu Jin took the jacket and was slightly stunned. He quickly said, "I won't be depressed talking to you." Really? Gu Nianji put her hands behind her back and tilted her head. "I'm worried that I'm one of those idiots." No, of course you're not." Lu Jin was a little anxious. "How could you be an idiot? There's no girl smarter than you." Gu Nianji smiled and said bluntly, "Thank you for your insight, Mr. Lu. I think I'm quite smart." "That's right." Lu Jin put on his suit in satisfaction and walked to the elevator with her. He said, "I hate empty pleasantries the most. Smart people must be humble and take the initiative to say that they're stupid. Otherwise they'll be proud and look down on others. Why don't I see those stupid people being honest and admitting that they're stupid? This society is so unfair." Gu Nianji was speechless. "Uncle Lu, your perspective is so strange." The two of them had just entered the elevator when Gu Nianji's phone vibrated again. She took out her phone and swiped it open. It was Bai Shuang. Bai Shuang? Gu Nianji picked up the phone. On the phone, Bai Shuang's voice was different from her usual crisp and clear voice. It was slightly trembling and nervous. She said in a sobbing voice, "Lawyer Gu, you have to help me. You have to help us." "What happened? Who bullied you?" Gu Nianji's expression changed slightly. She looked at her watch. It was only past 8 o'clock in the evening. The Lu Corporation celebration party had just begun, and H City's nightlife had just begun. No one bullied me. It's my client." Bai Shuang lowered her voice. "Can you come to my room? We really need a lawyer. Immediately. Immediately." Gu Nianji didn't say anything else. "Okay, I'll be right there." She put away her phone and looked up to see Lu Jin looking at her curiously. She explained to him, "A friend seems to be in trouble. I have to go help her." "What friend?" Lu Jin asked quickly. "This is your first time here and you're unfamiliar with this place. Can you help her?" "How would I know if I don't try?" Gu Nianji raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Lu, that's my friend. She asked me for help, so I can't reject her without even trying." Lu Jin's eyebrows twitched. He stared at her blankly for a while before looking away. "Then I'll go with you." Gu Nianji wanted to refuse, but Lu Jin said, "I'm a shareholder of the Lu Corporation after all. I can help too." Gu Nianji. Lu Jin saw that Gu Nianji didn't seem to trust him, so he immediately said, "I'm a major shareholder, a very big one. I hold more than 50% of the shares." He was eager to prove to Gu Nianji that he was more capable than Gu Nianji and had the resources to help her friend. Gu Nianji smiled and said gently, "I know. Thank you, Mr. Lu. I'm even more relieved with your help. As you said, I'm new here and don't know anyone here. It would be best if you could lend a hand." She didn't want to go to Bai Shuang's room alone. She would feel more at ease with Lu Jin accompanying her. Although she had just met Lu Jin, she had a hunch that Lu Jin didn't have any ill intentions towards her, nor was he a bad person. Her intuition was very accurate and she had never been wrong. The two of them quickly arrived at Bai Shuang's floor. After ringing the doorbell, Bai Shuang poked her head out. Seeing that Gu Nianji hadn't come alone, she looked at Lu Jin suspiciously and asked, "May I ask who you are?" Gu Nianji said vaguely, "He's my friend. He knows a lot of people. Maybe he can help you." Bai Shuang breathed a sigh of relief. "Come in." Opening the door, the two of them entered. When they entered Bai Shuang's suite, Gu Nianji saw her American client sitting on the sofa with a terrified expression. Her hands were clasped together as she looked at them in shock. She asked in English, "What are they doing? What are they doing here?" Bai Shuang explained it to him in English, then looked at Gu Nianji and said, "Dresden just told me that he's an employee of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security." Gu Nianji. Lu Jin's eyes flashed slightly, and he pulled Gu Nianji to sit down opposite Dresden. Bai Shuang sat next to Dresden. All the blood had drained from her face, and even her lips were slightly pale. "I've caused trouble." Gu Nianji looked at her. "Don't panic. Speak slowly. As long as you didn't do anything wrong, it's not a big deal even if the sky falls down." Bai Shuang was about to cry. He took a lot of important information from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Now, the CIA knows that he has come to H-City, and I heard that they have already issued a secret kill order. This was today's second reward and update. Chapter 1515, I'm a major shareholder. The 50,000 Chidian coins and updates that the leader of Momo Moshi had given every month had arrived. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw your monthly votes and recommendation votes over. Good night, big shots and little angels. Chapter 1527. Gu Nianji couldn't recover from her shock for a long time. How did Bai Shuang get involved in a political incident here? Lawyer Gu, what do you think we should do? Bai Shuang looked at Gu Nianji eagerly, her hand clenched into a fist. Gu Nianji's mind raced as she frowned and said, How did you know about the CIA's secret kill order? Bai Shuang looked at the pale Dresden beside her and whispered. His colleagues at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security secretly told him, Gu Nianji, so there was an accomplice. However, it would indeed be very difficult for him to escape the Americans on his own. Someone must have tipped him off. Gu Nianji thought about it for a moment and said, I'm afraid this isn't a small matter. Does your boss know? Bai Shuang quickly shook her head and said nervously, I don't know. Mr. Dresden said that he just randomly searched for English interpreters on the internet and found our company to place an order. Then our company sent me here. In order to not attract attention, Dresden deliberately chose a very small translation company and didn't look for a large translation company with a large reputation. It was also because of this that Bai Shuang's small company was chosen. Gu Nianji had no choice but to whisper, Then why don't you tell your boss first and then, let your boss handle it? What she meant was that it was better for Bai Shuang not to get involved in such a big matter. This was already an international incident. Even if Bai Shuang's boss came, he wouldn't be able to handle it. Was the CIA a normal agency? Although Gu Nianji had never come into contact with the CIA here, she knew that the CIA was probably the most powerful intelligence agency in the world over there. After the Cold War, the entire world was filled with bloodshed, and the international wars and disputes were almost all backed by the CIA. Bai Shuang understood what Gu Nianji meant. She hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. Lawyer Gu, since he's my client, I have a certain responsibility to him. I can't just abandon him like this. Although she was afraid, she didn't back down. Gu Nianji was a little dazed as she looked at Bai Shuang like this. It was as if she was seeing Bai Shuang who had died to atone for her father's crimes. Gu Nianji didn't want Bai Shuang to stay out of this. Her mind raced as she tried to figure out how to solve this problem. At the same time, in the dark night sky outside, on the shiny glass exterior of the Four Seasons Hotel building, 4 men in black suits were hanging down from above. Thick ropes were tied to their bodies, and they were lowered inch by inch from the roof of the building. Their target was a guest room with lights on and curtains drawn not far below their feet. They wore infrared night vision goggles and were not afraid of the dark. They could even see through the walls. The figures in the room were emitting heat radiation. Everyone was also wearing a Bluetooth headset with wireless communication function. The streetlights on this side of the hotel building had been extinguished by them, and the moonlight couldn't reach this corner. Even if they looked over from Victoria Bay, it was all dark and they couldn't be seen at all. Soon they landed on the outer layer of the building where Dresden was staying. Through the infrared night vision goggles, he could clearly see the situation in the room. There were actually 4 people in the room. They sat in a row facing each other on the sofa in the room. Although the curtains were drawn and the windows were closed, it wasn't an obstacle for the 4 well-equipped men in black. Action. The leader of the 4 men in black quietly gave orders into the Bluetooth headset. At that moment, Lu Jin, who was sitting facing the window in the room, suddenly said coldly, Someone's here. Get down. As he spoke, he rolled off the sofa with Gu Nianji in his arms and lay on the ground. His entire body covered her from head to toe like a shield. Dresden, who was sitting opposite him, lay on the ground even faster than Lu Jin. With a sudden rush, he fell from the sofa to the ground and trembled against the edge of the sofa. Bai Shuang was the last to fall to the ground. She didn't even have time to ask her questions. The sound of gunfire rang out, shattering the windows of the room and riddling the curtains with holes. Glass shards flew everywhere in the room, accompanied by the sparks of the bullets, igniting the dark night sky. The lights in the room were turned off, and it was pitch black both inside and outside the room. Just as the men were about to break through the window, Lu Jin activated the pulse interference function of the electromagnetic jammer in his pocket. This small device could interfere with all wireless communication devices. Just as the four men in black were about to rush in through the window, an unbearable pain suddenly came from their ears. A pulse of energy that was enough to pierce through the eardrums suddenly came from the Bluetooth headset. Ah. Ah. The four of them covered their ears and screamed at the same time. They lost their balance in an instant, and their bodies were hung by ropes in the air. They had no hands or feet to stabilize their direction. Gunyanji lay on the ground, protected by Lu Jin. She opened her eyes. Through the broken window, she saw a few strong figures passing through the window. One of them grabbed a man in black who was swaying in the air. In the darkness, a knife flashed and the man's throat was slit. One of the figures looked so familiar that Gunyanji couldn't help but widen her eyes. Wasn't that Hijichu? Why was he here? Outside the 10-story building, Hijichu and his men took the opportunity to charge out. They walked on the smooth glass surface as if they were walking on flat ground, as fierce as a Spider-Man. In the blink of an eye, he ended the lives of the four men in black. Hijichu tilted his head slightly. Take the bodies of the four traitors away and put them outside the U.S. liaison office in H City. These four men in black were Wuxia people, but they worked for the CIA office in H City. They were their peripheral henchmen, not official agents of the CIA, but what was commonly known as temporary workers. Hijichu had ordered them to place the corpses of these peripheral henchmen outside the CIA office in H City. This was a blatant deterrent. It was both for the CIA and for the Soviets to see. Their actions were clean and efficient. They came with the wind and left with the wind. If it weren't for the fact that the window of the hotel room had been shattered by the bullets, it would have been impossible to tell what had just happened. Gunyanji and the others lay on the ground for a while. When they saw that there was no more movement outside, they got up trembling. Looking at the glass shards all over the floor and the bullet holes in the wall, Dresden almost cried, "They are they? They're here." Bai Shuang calmed down. As she comforted Dresden, she quickly said to Gunyanji, "Our original intention was to hire lawyer Gu as Mr. Dresden's lawyer and then go against the U.S. Department of Justice in court. But looking at the Americans, they don't want to give him a chance to live at all." Go against the U.S. Department of Justice in court. Gunyanji dusted off her clothes and helped Lu Jin stand up. She was very confused. "As far as I know, Mr. Dresden is the one who's being dishonest, right?" This was equivalent to a company employee stealing the company's trade secrets. It was illegal everywhere. Bai Shuang was stunned for a moment. She turned to ask Dresden, "What information did you bring? It's really illegal?" Dresden was still in shock. He jumped up like a frightened rabbit and shouted, "I didn't do anything illegal. Theorem thekram. Doyana what I titus prism? They broke the law. They monitored the whole world. Do you know what prism is? Do you know what prism is?" Gunyanji was shocked. Lu Jin immediately stood in front of her and said to Dresden in English, "Shut up. You scared ladies. Shut up. You're scaring the ladies." Bai Shuang quickly tried to persuade Dresden in a low voice. Dresden took a few deep breaths and calmed down. He apologized to Gunyanji and nodded to Lu Jin to show his reconciliation. Gunyanji quickly said, "We can't stay here for the time being. You guys go to my room first and tell me what's going on. Otherwise, I don't know how to help you." Dresden immediately rushed into the room and came out with his backpack. He actively responded to Gunyanji's call. Bai Shuang and Dresden went out first. Lu Jin fell behind and asked Gunyanji quietly, "Do you really want to help them? What's your relationship with them?" Gunyanji didn't know how to explain. She said vaguely, "Bai Shuang and I are good friends. I can't just stand by and do nothing when she's in trouble." Lu Jin obviously didn't understand Gunyanji's actions, but he didn't object. He only reminded her, "This isn't something you and I can get involved in. You have to be careful." Gunyanji nodded. She was very grateful to Lu Jin for risking his life to save her. She quickly said, "Mr. Lu, thank you so much for just now. If it wasn't for you, she would probably have been injured just now. She probably wouldn't have died because she had seen Hijichu." Hijichu and the others were obviously also staring at the men in black. Lu Jin interrupted her and said calmly, "I saved you. How are you going to thank me?" Gunyanji, she hadn't thanked him yet, had she? But she really should thank Lu Jin. "How do you want me to thank you?" Gunyanji walked out of Dresden's room with him and took out her phone to call the police. Lu Jin put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked to Gunyanji's side. The smile on his lips was faintly discernible. He took a few steps and suddenly stopped. I want to go to Disneyland here. Can you stay for a few more days and accompany me to Disneyland? He looked at Gun Yenji intently. His expression was very nervous, as if he was afraid that she would refuse. Gun Yenji's eyes lit up and she smiled. Okay. I want to go to Disneyland too. Let's go together. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 15-16, How are you going to thank me? The rewards and updates would continue at 8 o'clock in the evening. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. Chapter 15-28. Seeing that Gun Yenji didn't dislike it at all, Lu Jin let out a long sigh. His brows relaxed and he smiled. As long as you're happy. The two of them chatted and soon arrived at Gun Yenji's room. Dresden and Bai Shuang were waiting there. Gun Yenji took out her key card and opened the door. She said worriedly, I've already called the police at the front desk. Dresden covered his face and said nervously, Oh my God. They will know where I am and hunt down. It's over, I'm going to be exposed. They'll know where I am. Gun Yenji said angrily, Shut up. They already knew where you were. Otherwise, how would the assassination have come about? Bai Shuang held back her laughter and translated to Dresden. Dresden's scream stopped abruptly and he froze. Lu Jin stood to the side with his hands in his pockets and looked expressionlessly at the night sky outside the window. He couldn't be bothered to look at Dresden's silly look. He felt that looking at him one more time would lower his IQ. Bai Shuang pulled Gun Yenji to the side and quickly told her everything about Dresden. It turned out that Dresden, as a temporary worker of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and an employee of the CIA, was involved in a new program called PRISM, also known as the PRISM program. It carried out deep surveillance of instant online communications and existing data around the world. He felt that this wasn't right. Not only was it an invasion of other people's privacy, but it was also a huge blow to the free spirit of the internet. It didn't match his beliefs. Therefore, he left the United States with the top-secret surveillance information he had access to. In the end, he was hunted down by the CIA. Gun Yenji had already been caught in the crossfire, and had been assassinated once. She glanced at Dresden coldly. She didn't believe a single word of his reasons. But her current priority was to save his and Bai Shuang's lives. Because he must have brought out the top-secret information from the United States. She recalled seeing He Jichu's figure outside the window just now. He must have represented the country against the people who were hunting Dresden. This meant that the Wuxia Empire government was well aware of Dresden's existence. Gun Yenji thought about it for a long time and said slowly, If that's the case, I think we should do it this way. She looked at Dresden's face and said word by word, We'll find the important figures and media here and take the initiative to expose all the facts. At the same time, we'll shout to the American government and tell the world that you're fighting for the privacy of the people of the world and the free spirit of the internet. Only by turning the dark into the light and letting the whole world know that the US government is after you will you have a chance to live. From the moment Gun Yenji saw He Jichu's figure, she realized that Dresden's appearance wasn't just a personal act, but a game between the major powers. As for what information Dresden had taken away and why he had taken it away, only he himself probably knew. Bai Shuang quickly translated Gun Yenji's suggestion to Dresden. Dresden also knew what was good for him. He thought for a moment and immediately nodded. It's a good idea, however. Bai Shuang understood what he meant and turned to ask Gun Yenji, Lawyer Gu, do you know any important figures or well-known media outlets that can help? Gun Yenji was about to speak when Lu Jin suddenly turned his head and said, You can contact Lawyer He from the H City Legislative Council. He's a distant relative of the He family in the imperial capital. He's very powerful in the H City Legislative Council, and he's a lawyer. He can help Dresden respond to the lawsuit in the future. Because the U.S. Department of Justice would definitely prosecute Dresden. Bai Shuang glanced at Gun Yenji. She knew what kind of existence the He family in the imperial capital was, but she still trusted Gun Yenji's opinion more. Gun Yenji took out her phone and quickly looked up Lawyer He from the H City Legislative Council. After skimming through his resume, Gun Yenji said happily, This person isn't bad. He can help Mr. Dresden in every way. You can even stay at his house. This Lawyer He was very rich. He had a mansion halfway up the mountain, so it wouldn't be a problem for two idle people to live in. Bai Shuang saw that Gun Yenji had agreed, so she said with relief, Okay, let's contact this Lawyer He and see if he's willing to accept our case. She looked at Gunyenji again. As for well-known media outlets, does Lawyer Gu have any recommendations? Gunyenji had an idea in this regard. In the era of the internet, where social media was booming, the power of self-media was no longer to be underestimated. In order to ensure Dresden's safety, the best way was to use social media to expand the influence as soon as possible. Gunyenji picked up her phone and began to think about which social media to expose. At that moment, Bai Shuang and Dresden's phones rang. The two of them looked at the same time and saw that it was a call from the hotel's front desk and security system. They said that the hotel had received a call from the police. After coming up to investigate, they found that the situation was serious and had already called the police. The police were here now and wanted to ask them about the situation. Gunyenji and Lu Jin had also been in Bai Shuang and Dresden's room. The surveillance footage in the corridor showed the four of them coming out of the room together, so the two of them were also called over. The police stood at the door of Dresden's room with their men and sealed off his room. They only questioned him at the door. Zhao Liangzi had been sent by Lu Yuan to see what had happened. He stood at the door and took a look. He was stunned by the large broken hole in the window. He turned around and saw Gunyenji and Lu Jin. He quickly asked, "Lawyer Gu, Mr. Lu, what happened? Are you guys hurt?" Gunyenji shook her head and remembered that Lu Jin had blocked her way at that time. She quickly asked, "Mr. Lu, are you okay?" Lu Jin said academically, "The lining of my suit jacket contains 10% Kevlar. The chemical name is polyterephthalylterephthalylanidiamine. It's also bulletproof. The hardness of the hotel room's window glass is only 6.5. It's completely impossible for it to penetrate my suit and injure me. You don't have to worry about me." Gunyenji, Zhao Liangzi was used to Lu Jin's style of speaking, so he didn't mind. He turned to see Bai Shuang and was slightly stunned. He remembered this girl. The blunder in the Hilton Hotel's underground bar that night had left a deep impression on him. He glanced at Gunyenji again. This girl was the one who was spouting nonsense, but he wasn't disgusted. He stood to the side and waited for the police to finish questioning him. The VIP account manager of the Four Seasons Hotel rushed over to apologize to Dresden. He even offered to change his suite and provide him with a month of free accommodation as compensation. The temptation was indeed great. Dresden agreed immediately and moved to the luxurious suite provided by the Four Seasons Hotel. Zhao Liangzi followed them over. After making sure that they were all fine, he planned to leave. Gunyenji remembered Zhao Liangzi's job at that moment. Her heart skipped a beat and she called out to him, "Director Zhao, there's something I need your help with. I wonder if you're willing to join me in this grand undertaking?" Zhao Liangzi. "Speak human." Gunyenji smiled slightly. "It's like this. It wasn't a coincidence that Mr. Dresden's room was shot at today." She told him the whole story and finally said, "We plan to find a well-known media outlet to release some of the information Mr. Dresden has and ask the world for help to avoid being hunted down by the CIA." Zhao Liangzi's expression was very serious. "If what Mr. Dresden said is true, then this matter is too serious. How can you mess around?" Gunyenji was displeased, but before she could refute Zhao Liangzi that she wasn't messing around, Lu Jin had already fired first. "Director Zhao, Lawyer Gu's proposal is reasonable, beneficial, and reasonable. She has considered all aspects and logically speaking it's very rigorous. From what angle do you think she's messing around?" Lu Jin looked at him seriously. "If you think this is messing around, do you have a better idea? A more appropriate arrangement? A more rigorous logic?" Zhao Liangzi's face turned red from Lu Jin's words, but he knew that he couldn't argue with Lu Jin. He couldn't argue with him anyway, and even if he was in the right, he was in the wrong. He would be crazy to reason with him. Yes. Mr. Lu is right. I was wrong." Zhao Liangzi shook his head helplessly and looked at Gunyenji. "Then how do you want me to help you?" Gunyenji smiled and patted his shoulder. "Help Miss Bai and Mr. Dresden get a Twitter account." "You're looking for me just for this?" Zhao Liangzi didn't believe it was that simple. He, the technical director of the Lu Corporation, was needed. Of course it's not that simple. Gunyenji crossed her arms and raised her chin slightly. "Even the people inside Twitter can't find the IP address of that account. Can you do it?" This would have to consider the hacker's ability to hide the IP address. Even the root directory of the server had to be deceived. It was essentially no different from hacking into Twitter's server host. Zhao Liangzi's deep hacker instincts were immediately ignited by Gunyenji. His eyes lit up and he rubbed his palms together. "No problem, I can give it a try." Lu Jin glared at Gun Yanji from the side. His lips opened and closed several times, and the words lingered in his mouth. In the end he swallowed them. He glanced sideways at Zhao Liangzi and said, "This has to be done quickly. How long do you need to create an account with an IP address that even Twitter can't find?" Zhao Liangzi jumped up. "I'll go get my laptop. Just you wait. It shouldn't be more than 12 hours. 12 hours is too much. It should be within 6 hours, which is before dawn tomorrow." Lu Jin's hands were itching to do it, so he suggested, "If you can't do it within 6 hours, then someone else will do it." He looked at Gun Yanji and winked at her desperately. He really wanted to show off his skills in front of her. Unfortunately, Gun Yanji's attention was all on Zhao Liangzi. Seeing that Zhao Liangzi had agreed, she happily reached out her hand. "You can do it." The two of them high-fived in the air to set the time. Zhao Liangzi hurried back to his room to get his laptop. Gun Yanji held her phone and continued to search for the contact information of the legislator, lawyer He. Bai Shuang was explaining to Dresden in a low voice the method that Gun Yanji and the others had just discussed. No one paid attention to Lu Jin. Lu Jin felt a little irritated. He took out his phone and quickly wrote a small program to calm himself down. This was the second update of the day, chapter 1517, "You don't have to worry about me." The first update of the 100,000 Chidian coins that the leader of PPLR-PPL had rewarded in February had arrived. Yes, next was the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. Good night, little angels. Chapter 1529. Zhao Liangzi rushed in excitedly with his laptop. Lu Jin put his phone back in his pocket, took off his suit jacket and hung it on his arm. He looked at Gun Yanji and said, "Lawyer Gu, Director Zhao is here to help. Why don't we all go back and rest?" Gun Yanji raised her head from her phone and looked at Zhao Liangzi, then at Bai Shuang, who had moved closer to Zhao Liangzi to look at the computer screen with him. She pursed her lips into a smile and said, "Okay, then I'll go back with you." As she spoke, she winked at Bai Shuang. "Bai Shuang, I'm leaving first. You should rest early too. Director Zhao will probably have to stay up all night." Bai Shuang stood up in embarrassment and said softly, "Sorry to trouble you, Lawyer Gu. Rest early. I'll go to the kitchen to make coffee." How could people who stayed up all night not have coffee? Gun Yanji waved at her, then coughed at Zhao Liangzi. "Director Zhao, I'll leave this matter to you." Zhao Liangzi didn't even raise his head as he replied calmly, "No problem. Come see the results tomorrow morning." Lu Jin scoffed and shrugged. "It doesn't matter if there's no result tomorrow. Lawyer Gu, I'll help you find a better software engineer. It'll be done within 3 minutes. Zhao Liangzi slowly raised his head and glanced at Lu Jin. He snorted and resisted the urge to roll his eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mr. Lu, bragging has to be taxed. I won't be sending you off." Gun Yanji saw that Zhao Liangzi had been ridiculed too harshly by Lu Jin, so she quickly held back her laughter and spoke up for him. "Director Zhao, don't scare Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu was just joking." Lu Jin frowned and stood at the door blocking the door. With a serious expression he said, "I'm not joking. Gun Yanji, you don't have to pay taxes for bragging unless you're bragging on the financial statements of a listed company and exaggerating the income data, also known as making false accounts, then you have to pay taxes." Lu Jin was very serious and did not let Zhao Liangzi off at all. Zhao Liangzi thumped his forehead in exasperation. How could he forget? She couldn't say another word to someone like Lu Jin. Zhao Liangzi gritted his teeth and said nothing more. Gun Yanji tugged at Lu Jin's sleeve in amusement and whispered, "Mr. Lu, let's go. We still have a lot to do." Lu Jin's irritation was immediately soothed. He smiled and said, "Yes, what happened here has nothing to do with us. We're going to Disneyland tomorrow. Go to bed early today." Gun Yanji quickly walked out of Dresden's luxurious suite with Lu Jin and went back to her room to rest. She was really exhausted from the evening. After returning to her room and taking a shower, Gun Yanji climbed into bed. However, she could not fall asleep. Today was her 20th birthday, but she was spending it all alone. For the past few years, the birthday party had never been so deserted. Although it was his choice, he was not used to it. Gun Yanji thought about it, then took out her phone and sent herself a text message. "Yanji, happy birthday to you. Have a happy birthday every year. Come on." After sending the text message to herself, she still wanted to continue. Then he took his laptop and registered 2 new accounts online. He named one Hua Xiaoheng, and the other, Gu Xiangwen. Then he used the 2 newly registered accounts to send himself a text message. Huxiaoheng, my little darling, happy birthday to you. I miss you so much that I want to kiss you. Gu Xiangwen, my precious daughter, Daddy wishes you a happy birthday from heaven. She looked at the 2 new text messages on her phone with satisfaction. She pasted them on and kissed the 2 names. She thought to herself, who isn't a drama queen? She was able to play the role of a triangle perfectly. She put away her phone and was about to go to sleep when her phone vibrated again. Someone was calling. Gu Nianji looked at the name on her phone. It was He Qingjian. She frowned. She didn't want to pick it up, but the other party kept calling. In the end, she swiped open her phone and answered the call. She said indifferently, "Hello, General He. So late. What's the matter?" He Qingjian could hear the distance and estrangement in her tone, but he didn't care. He smiled and said, "Nianji, today is your 20th birthday. Uncle He wishes you a happy birthday." Gu Nianji, she had always had a lot of opinions and resentment towards He Qingjian, but she couldn't hate such a late-night happy birthday call. She held her phone for a while and nodded. "Thank you, Uncle He." From General He to Uncle He, the change in how she addressed him was enough to prove the change in her state of mind. He Qingjian laughed. "Good girl, I gave you a birthday present. Go buy something you like. Jichu is out on a mission and can't celebrate your birthday with you. He asked me to say happy birthday on his behalf." Gu Nianji sighed in her heart. No matter how much He Qingjian had done to her, she had to admit that He Qingjian was a good father to He Jichu. "Thank you, Uncle He. Young master, he celebrated my birthday a few days ago." Gu Nianji's voice softened. "Take care of yourself and tell him to take care of himself." "Okay, I know. Thank you, Nianji." He Qingjian said a few more words of concern before putting down the phone. As soon as He Qingjian hung up, Gu Nianji saw a text message about a bank transfer. A 7-figure sum of money was transferred to her bank account, and the message was, "Happy birthday." It was from He Qingjian. This was He Qingjian's birthday present for her. What a generous gift. Gu Nianji, who had been struggling with half a month's salary because of Lu Jin's meal yesterday, had immediately become a rich woman again. Gu Nianji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She thought about going to Disneyland tomorrow. She could pay the bill herself and wouldn't have to borrow someone else's car. Lu Jin smiled and returned to the presidential suite that he and Lu Yuan shared. He saw that Lu Yuan had already returned and was sitting on the sofa reading documents. "You're in such a good mood?" Lu Yuan put down the documents and picked up the remote control to turn on the TV. "What's the good news?" "I'm going to Disneyland with Nianji tomorrow." Lu Jin was very proud. He looked at himself in the mirror and threw the suit on his arm onto the sofa. Lu Yuan frowned. "Have you been interacting with Nianji too much lately? You know that someone has been spying on Nianji, right?" Lu Jin's face darkened. "You don't have to tell me. Of course I know. Qin Jining, that little guy with a low IQ since he was young, even learned to spy on others. If I don't bring him into the ditch tomorrow, I'll write my name backwards." Lu Yuan scoffed. Seeing that he knew what he was doing, he didn't say anything else. At the same time, in the study of the He family's mansion in the imperial capital, He Qingjian had just ended his call with Gu Nianji. He put on his reading glasses and read the briefing from H City sent by his subordinates. Dresden's matter was going smoothly. A few of the CIA's peripheral henchmen had been killed, and their bodies had been placed at the entrance of the CIA's office in H City. It had indeed given them a shock. A group of people went to the police station in H City to call the police, but they couldn't provide any clues. Instead, because of the guns and bullets they had on them, they were found to be related to the attack at the Four Seasons Hotel that night. The CIA's office in H City was in a mess and had lost face. Ijichu didn't have to worry about it for the time being. He smiled in satisfaction and tapped his fingers on the desk. He hummed an opera, "I'll beat you with a steel whip," as he continued to read. Next was the news about Gu Nianji. He had arranged for someone to secretly protect Gu Nianji. Of course, they were also monitoring her. Every once in a while, someone would report Gu Nianji's situation in detail. As he read, the corners of his lips gradually drooped. His brows furrowed. Because the briefing clearly stated that Gu Nianji had deliberately approached Xie Qingying and asked about Gu Xiangwen and Xie Xian's whereabouts. It was fine if she asked Gu Xiangwen. No matter what, Gu Xiangwen was her biological father. Although He Qingjian hated Gu Xiangwen very much, if Gu Nianji returned to this side and ignored her biological father, He Qingjian couldn't help but think that she was cold. Now it was just right. One more would be too much and one less would be heartless. He Qingjian was very satisfied. However, he was not happy that Gu Nianji had asked about Xie Zian. Who was Xie Zian? What did it have to do with her? Xie Zian was Hua Xiaoheng's biological grandmother in the other world. Gu Nianji was also looking for her in this world. Wasn't it because she had ulterior motives? He Qingjian's face darkened as he carefully read the conversation between Gu Nianji and Xie Qingying a few more times. Suddenly he exclaimed in surprise. Gu Nianji had actually asked Xie Qingying if the Xie family had asked the KGB of the Soviet Union to help find someone. That's right, why hadn't he thought of that? 3 years ago, He Qingjian had used his own country's field personnel to find someone in the Soviet Union, so he hadn't alerted the Soviet Union's official agencies. In fact, if they wanted to find someone in the Soviet Union, if the KGB of the Soviet Union was ranked second, no one would dare to rank first. There were only people they didn't want to find, and there was no one they couldn't find. He Qingjian thought of the encrypted telegram sent by the Soviet Union for help. He patted his head and called his personal secretary. He said, "Call the Soviet Union back and ask their KGB system to help find someone. The only daughter of the older generation of the Xie family, Xie Zian." This time, the Soviet Union had indeed put in a lot of effort for the American Dresden. The Soviet Union's national leader, Putin, had personally called him this morning to ask for his help. He Qingjian took the opportunity to ask for some benefits for the country. For example, he asked to buy a few Soviet White Swan nuclear strategic bombers. This would have been impossible in the past, but this time, Putin agreed immediately and sold them 3 at a preferential price. He Qingjian felt that he could make another request, and that was to ask the KGB of the Soviet Union to help find Xie Zian's whereabouts. This time, regardless of whether she was alive or dead, there would definitely be a result. After the personal secretary called the Soviet Union back, He Qingjian's emotions were very complicated. He couldn't figure out whether he wanted Xie Zian to be alive or if he wanted her to be dead long ago. Before dawn, the Soviet Union sent him a message and gave him a clear answer. It turned out that Xie Zian had joined the KGB not long after she went to the Soviet Union. She was once one of the few female higher-ups in the KGB, had a short marriage history and had 2 children. No wonder they couldn't find Xie Zian's whereabouts no matter what. It turned out that she had joined the KGB. This was the first update of the day, Chapter 1518, Happy Birthday to Myself. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the monthly tickets would be 3,500 with advance updates. Yes, next would be the time to ask for votes. Don't be careless and throw them over. P.S. Nyang Nyang and Dukkha reading are all charged according to 1,000 words, that is, less than 1,000 words there is no charge. I have never charged according to the number of words on the 1,000-word card. Each chapter is a few hundred more words than the whole book. These are all free. Moi, all the big shots and little angels. Chapter 1530. The KGB of the Soviet Union had stated in the secret telegram that Xie Zian had passed away for many years, and they had also sent him the address of her grave so that he could pay his respects at any time. However, the name and identity on the tombstone were already that of another person. It wasn't Xie Zian. Only the photo on the tombstone showed that it was her. They claimed that Xie Zian's name had been completely erased from the moment she joined the KGB. He Qingjian looked at the simple information and was speechless for a long time. He had only asked the KGB of the Soviet Union about Xie Zian, but he hadn't expected her to have 2 children. Those 2 children should still be alive, right? According to the age, Xie Zian should have descendants in the generation of grandchildren. Did this mean that they really had a Hua Xiaoheng on their side? However, he wasn't in Huaxia but in the Soviet Union. This was also the reason why he hadn't been able to find the whereabouts of the Hua family after searching the entire country for 3 to 4 years, right? Because they weren't in the country at all, but in the Soviet Union. Of course, this was only He Qingjian's speculation. For now, he only had this one chance to ask the KGB. He wouldn't have any other chance to ask them for more information. Moreover, now that the other party had indicated that Xie Zian had once been a high-ranking member of the KGB, if he continued to inquire about her descendants, he would be suspected of stealing secrets. No wonder she had no contact with the Xie family not long after she went to the Soviet Union. The Xie family all thought that she had died in that major battle. It was very likely that the KGB had given her fake information to fake her death to change her identity. He Qingjian pondered that Xie Zian had joined the KGB as a Huaxia citizen and had become a high-ranking member. Her previous identity must have been completely erased, so it was impossible for her to contact her previous family. The KGB of the Soviet Union wouldn't be at ease with her continuing to contact her previous family. As long as she contacted them, there was a possibility that her identity would be exposed. If He Chengjian hadn't asked about it when the Soviet Union needed his help, the KGB wouldn't have told him about it, right? Whether it was in the military or on the secret front, everyone followed the principle of, if you don't ask, I don't tell. Moreover, the KGB didn't want the Xia family to know about her. This was explained in the secret telegram to He Chengjian. The Xia family definitely didn't want to know about this either. Xia Beichen was now the prime minister. Which prime minister of any country would be willing to admit that he had a relative who used to be the intelligence chief of another country? Do you still want to be elected as prime minister in the future? He Chengjian sat in the study until dawn. After pondering for an entire night, he hid the secret message in the safe. The next day the weather in H City was very good. At the end of October in H City, the pink and purple silk kapok was in full bloom, and the air seemed to be filled with a sweet fragrance. Gu Nianji woke up early in the morning and planned to go to Disneyland. Today was supposed to be the day for the guests to return to Sea City. Since morning, people had been checking out of their rooms and boarding planes. There were only 3 people invited from Gu Nianji's law firm. Of course, their newly hired employees were not qualified to attend the Lu Corporation's celebration party. Lawyer Jean had called her and knew that she had something to do, so he wanted to stay for a few more days. Jean Dezhuang did not refuse. After all, he was dealing with the senior executives of the Lu Corporation. He could treat it as public relations for the law firm. Therefore, Jean Dezhuang was very generous and tolerant to her. He agreed immediately and even let her play for a few more days without worrying about her work at the law firm. Moreover, she was already a partner at the law firm, so she had more freedom in her work schedule. Gu Nianji tidied herself up and went to Lawyer Jean and Xiao Zhang's room to say goodbye to them. She sent them on the bus to the airport. Xiao Zhang was extremely envious. He repeatedly asked Gu Nianji to bring her some figurines and snacks when she went back. Gu Nianji agreed with a smile. She stood at the entrance of the hotel and watched the airport bus drive away. She was carrying a backpack and wearing light white sneakers, Juicy Couture. Her hair was combed in a ponytail and she wore a pair of big sunglasses. She looked like she was going on a trip. After waiting at the entrance of the hotel for a while, she looked at her watch. It was almost 9:30 p.m. If she didn't leave now, the line would get too crowded. She found out on the internet that Disneyland here was always crowded. She often had to line up for an hour or two to play the popular attractions. Just as she picked up her phone to call Lu Jin, she heard her phone ring. She picked it up and saw that it was the phone number Lu Jin had given her yesterday. She quickly swiped it open and picked it up. She asked with a smile, "Mr. Lu, are you still going to Disneyland?" "Of course." Lu Jin's voice came from the phone with a smile. "But we're playing a game today." "What game? Tell me quickly." Gu Nianji's eyes lit up and she was eager to try. She couldn't help but look forward to today's trip to Disneyland. "I'll go in first and leave you clues along the way. You'll follow the clues I left behind and finally meet at the exit. If you can recognize me, you'll win this game." Gu Nianji found it extremely interesting and quickly said, "What's the prize? What if I lose?" Lu Jin laughed loudly. "If you win, I'll give you a big gift. If you lose?" He paused and finally said, "Then you'll play Disneyland with me again." Gu Nianji bent over with laughter and said, "Then I'll take advantage of you. How about this, if I lose, I'll treat you to French food, okay?" Aren't you almost out of money?" Lu Jin was surprised. "If you treat me to French food again, aren't you afraid that you won't have money to go back?" "Of course not." Gu Nianji shook her finger. "First of all, even if I don't have money, I won't be unable to go back, because the Lu Corporation bought us a round-trip ticket. I've already changed my ticket. Second of all, how do you know I don't have money? I just made a small fortune, so it's more than enough to treat you to French food." Lu Jin heard that Gu Nianji's words were clear, logical, and well-organized. He didn't think she was being disobedient. Instead, he was overjoyed. He nodded vigorously and said, "Okay, the game officially begins. I'll go first. You can come back in half an hour. Got it?" Gu Nianji nodded. "I'll get in the car now. I'll be there in about half an hour." Gu Nianji waved her hand and got into a taxi to Disneyland. Lu Jin was already standing at the entrance of Disneyland. He looked at the 3 girls in front of him who were dressed exactly like Gu Nianji and said, "Today you have to go in 3 different directions and play in Disneyland. Remember not to meet each other. If you meet each other, all your pay for today will be cancelled." "Don't worry, sir. We won't meet each other. Disneyland is so big and there are only 3 of us. How will we meet each other? Don't worry. The 3 girls' figures were exactly the same as Gunyenji. They had the same long hair tied into a ponytail, wore the same sunglasses and carried the same backpacks. If Gunyenji stood with them, she would look like quadruplets. Lu Jin gave them a thumbs up. Fun. Remember my conditions. After today these outfits will all be yours. As he spoke, he put a lion's head mask on his head. He was dressed in a Lion King cartoon costume and looked like a large walking lion. At 9:30, Disneyland opened its doors. Disneyland in H City looked like a large scorpion from the air. From the scorpion's tail, the first attraction was American Town. Further ahead was the Adventure Forest. The artificial river in the forest was winding, waiting for everyone to explore. On the left side of the door were Grizzly Valley, Misty Manor, and Rebel Army Base Camp. On the right side of the door were Fantasy World and Tomorrow's World. The crowd waiting at the door swarmed in. The 3 were dressed in juicy. Young girls in black couture sportswear with sapphire trim mingled with the crowd. One entered every 10 minutes. Not long after, the field personnel responsible for secretly protecting and monitoring Gunyenji also entered Disneyland. They were all separated and protected each other. They did not contact each other and did not know of each other's existence. Therefore, Lu Jin was able to adopt the strategy of divide and conquer, and defeat them one by one, to lure them away. Qin Jining was the last to arrive. He wasn't fooled by Lu Jin's smoke bomb. He had been following the real Gunyenji. However, he clearly saw Gunyenji get out of the taxi and enter the main entrance with the ticket she had bought online. However, when he was about to follow her further, a group of staff members dressed in Disney costumes suddenly ran out of the rooms of the American Town attraction. Among them were the familiar Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Big Yellow, Snow White, the 7 Dwarfs, Cinderella and her stepmother, 2 sisters, a pumpkin cart, a fairy and even the dragon in Mulan. It was like the dragon lanterns dancing in a small town in the countryside during the Spring Festival, circling around in front of them. Qin Jining and the group of tourists who had just entered the door were immediately surrounded by the cartoon characters and the long line. Then the open-air loudspeakers began to play cheerful Disney movie music. The staff members in cartoon costumes invited everyone to sing and dance, instantly stirring up the atmosphere. The tourists were crazy with joy. They all took out selfie sticks, held their phones and opened the beauty camera app. They took beautiful photos of themselves and their group members from various angles and immediately uploaded them to their various WeChat moments and Weibo. Qin Jining's eyes were surrounded by selfie sticks, blocking his view. Gunyenji, who was carrying a backpack, disappeared from his sight. He was anxious. Finally, ignoring the complaints and rolling eyes of those people, he pushed them away with all his might and squeezed out of the cartoon characters in the long line. Behind him was the direction of the gate. Tourists kept walking in happily. When they saw that there were cartoon characters taking photos here, of course they all ran over immediately. In front of them was the Adventure World attraction. It was a tropical jungle. Qin Jining couldn't help feeling nervous. This was the first time he had lost track of his target. Most importantly, this wasn't a dangerous place but a bustling Disneyland. Damn it, how strange. Qin Jining muttered. He turned on his Bluetooth headset and began to contact his own people to ask them to check on Gunyenji's whereabouts. At that moment he saw Gunyenji's figure walking towards the Adventure World, and quickly chased after her. There was a forest river tour in the Adventure World. The man-made lake that had been dug out surrounded the tropical rainforest. It was quite like Tarzan of the Apes. Qin Jining dove in. He clearly saw Gunyenji's figure turn behind a big tree, so he quickly followed her. Suddenly, a gorilla hung upside down from a tree and roared at him. Qin Jining was caught off guard and subconsciously tried to avoid the big furry head. He took a few steps back, but another gorilla appeared behind him. The 2 gorillas aimed at the target and attacked from the front and back. They collided together, causing Qin Jining to be dizzy. He slipped and fell into the river. The Disneyland guards and lifeguards quickly received the news and ran over with a stretcher. They rescued Qin Jining and dragged him away in the ambulance. As Qin Jining lay in the ambulance in a daze and was being injected by the nurse, he suddenly remembered that there were no real gorillas in Disneyland. They were all Tarzan of the Apes, dressed up by the staff. This is today's second monthly ticket for 3,500 plus updates. Chapter 1519, Take It to the Ditch. Yes, next is the time to ask for tickets. Don't be careless and throw them over. Good night, everyone, little angels. that you're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.